To call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, March 7th. If we would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I guess the only thing that I would like to say is we would like to thank God and whomever else for bestowing all this water on us for the last few months. It's been very exciting. Everybody's smiling. We're all breathing a little better. And we're enjoying the rain. So thank you very much. And Denise, ready? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Cassidy? Here. Councilmember Hernandez?
Here.
Councilmember Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson?
Here.
And Mayor Marshall?
Here. And now we will have a presentation. And who would like to announce that? Gary.
Thanks, Jordan.
What?
Oh, my goodness. That's a full house.
I'm looking for...
Gary Hamrick.
Is this... Gary? You don't look like Gary to me, but maybe that is your name.
I am not Gary.
Okay, hello.
Hi, members of the council, thank you so much for having me. My name is Yvette Kieran. I'm with the Gateway Cities Council of Governments, of which the City of Avalon is a proud participating member. I first want to thank you, members of council, and Member Cassidy for working with us over at the COG monthly, working through all of the transportation issues, and I'm really excited to be here. It's my first time visiting the island, so I had a wonderful opportunity to go visit some of the attractions around, including your school, your fire station, some of the locations where you have dental assistance, and went down to the theater and the casino, and then obviously went to a few of the restaurants and enjoyed an afternoon. So I appreciate the opportunity to visit. The reason that I'm presenting tonight is to provide you with some information on what we call at the Gateway Cities the Strategic Transportation Plan, which is a transportation plan that was built from the ground up beginning back in 2013, and it was approved by the COG board in April of 2016. Let me see if I can function through these slides. Oh, cool. Thank you. So the Gateway Transportation, Strategic Transportation included all 27 cities, the Port of Long Beach, and we used a state-of-the-art modeling tool of both meso, macro, and micro traffic simulation. Let me see if we have this right. It included all modes of transportation, including freeway, arterials, transit, park and ride, active transportation, goods movement, ITS, stormwater, and everything compiled together. I call it a layer cake that has many ingredients, and to create a beautiful cake, you have to have all of the ingredients included. Particularly to Avalon, include the transit and park and ride, as well as what I guess it would be considered goods movement, but it's people movement when it comes to your ferry transportation, as well as some level of intelligent transportation as well in assistance to get around the island, and obviously stormwater and active transportation being very important. So as part of the plan, we looked at 55 different bikeways over in the mainland, over in the Gateway Cities area, as well as we worked collaboratively with some of the staff here. Some of the benefits and the goals of the study was to reduce air emissions, to be able to qualify for things like the state cap and trade funds, or to be ready for some of the federal opportunities that may present themselves in the future. Over on the mainland, we modeled over 2,300 signals, which were all of the signals within the Gateway Cities. I'll kind of go through this real quick since it's not necessarily applicable, but it's definitely informational. With regard to the arterial highways, we looked at all of the intersections and corridors, and we looked at safety to improve them. Out of all of the arterials, we found that there were up to 25 significantly deficient corridors, and we're starting to do a process over there that looks at complete streets for all of those to increase the efficiency and include all of the modes of transportation, including transit and active transportation. This is just a picture of some of the red lines that show the deficiencies over within the Gateway Cities. And these are corridors that are currently being prioritized for complete streets transportation planning currently. From all of the intersections that were considered deficient, we created up to it was about 100 plans that were at this level, which this is about a 30% design level that allows each of the cities to be able to go out and request funding and have the justification to do so. Within the freeways, we looked at every freeway over within the gateway cities, whether it was the 405, the 605, the 91, the 105, and the 5. And we looked at what the needs are of those transportation infrastructures and what they would need to be planned out for in order to accommodate the future traffic. And we looked at if we added a lane in each direction, what would happen to the traffic model. We also looked at, for example, if you added all of the capacity in transit, that regardless of whether you could afford it or not, but based on the need, what would that do for air quality conformity as well as just efficiency on the freeways and arterials. Noting on that a little bit, we worked with the regional transportation programs, including Eco Rapid Transit, which is the next big project to come through the gateway cities, which is going to run from LA all the way down to Artesia, possibly into Cerritos. It's been funded by Measure M, which passed earlier, I guess in November of this past year. That is going to pay for some of these larger programs. The active transportation element, this is where we started to get something that's more relevant here to the island. It included bicycles, pedestrians, access to transit, public health and fitness, and safety. These are some of the things that I'd like to spend more time working with your staff as well as you in terms of documenting your needs and drawing a nexus to potential funding sources over on the mainland that we've dealt with. For example, addressing the ferry to be part of a first last mile. Maybe some of you have heard of first last mile, but basically the most difficult problem in accessing transit is living within a mile of it. And how do you access it? Because not everybody can walk a mile. So with regard to the ferry here, maybe people can't get, from a mile within. So we want to look at measures that we can help bring funding to this area for that type of infrastructure. I also understand that you have a fixed route, a dial-a-ride, and a paratransit route. So those are also things that we would consider to be within the first last mile eligibility that we would want to help you prepare for. I'll go off topic a little bit. The STP has many, many, many sub-regional projects in it. And to consider the ferry and to consider your active transportation network here on the island, as well as the transit opportunities that you have, are all very important to the gateway cities. And they should be treated as such. So I want to make sure that we continue to work with your staff to try to maximize the potential for these funding opportunities. This is an example of a regionally significant active transportation project that was developed. And the only reason I wanted to show you it is because of the level of detail that's included on it. For this particular one, which we created 55 of them, it shows a east-west bikeway, which on the island it might be circular, that is considered sub-regional to the area that it's within. And we created and quantified the benefits, the challenges, and the key components of that bikeway so that somebody at your staff level who normally might not have the time to be able to submit and quantify information for funding opportunities has something in their hand that they can directly use and insert. We want to be an extension of your staff. We want to provide you with materials that help take the load off of your staff to be able to help you access funding opportunities. Goods movement was more geared towards goods coming into the port and going up the various corridors, whether it was the BNSF or up Alameda Corridor. But one of my questions before arriving here at the island was, how does this island receive all of its goods? Do you have Amazon Prime? I mean, how do you, goods movement obviously has a big function here as well. And if there is a way that we can help quantify opportunities for that, we would like to help as well. As part of the 710, one of the major components of the 710 freeway is building an alternative, is building a freight corridor, a zero emission freight corridor that runs from the port all the way up into East LA. to the rail yards. So that's something that we're continuing to vet in the form of an EIR, and that's something that was included in here as part of the air quality conformity for the STP, whether if you had that in the project versus didn't have it in the project, and it was considered a significant element. And one of the goals was to be able to purchase zero-emission trucks to operate a sustainable freight corridor in the future. Another part of the STP was the modeling of the air quality. It's funny, from the island here, you can see how bad the air quality is looking in, which is something that I've never had a perspective for because it was my first time visiting the island. So that's something that I would imagine is very important to you as well, so that that bad air doesn't reach here. Things that we looked at was the diesel particulate matter, air quality, cancer risk, and the greenhouse gas emissions. These two graphics are chilling, actually. In 2009, you can see a lot of red and yellow and very little green on the map for 2009. And that was based on the diesel particulate matter that are basically coming off the trucks that are operating through the gateway cities. With the STP modeled, you can see the difference in the air quality. Now, the STP can't take 100% credit for it because there are a lot of advances that have been coming and have been implemented by both local, state, federal government over the years, and cars do continue to get cleaner and trucks do continue to get cleaner. But also with moving vehicles more efficiently, you can see there's just such a huge difference between now and later with regard to the air quality. The same holds true with the cancer risk. There was a LA Times article, I believe this past week, that talked about the cancer risk associated with living near a freeway. I think that's actually part of what they might be considering as part of the Measure S over on the mainland when they talk about trying to have setback zone from freeways when building them because the cancer risks are so high. So this graphic shows kind of the now and later with regard to the cancer risk as well, which is improved based on the cleaning of all of these vehicles and goods movement. We tried to find a way of telling what does the STP do for all of us. So these are a few examples or scenarios. So the STP is similar to taking 215,000 cars off the road today. That's the benefit if you had it now. The STP is equal to replacing 11.7 million standard light bulbs with fluorescent lamps. It's also equivalent to expanding the forests by 750,000 acres, which I don't know how many acres of forest you have here on the island, but it's beautiful. And lastly, it's similar to shutting down a coal power plant for 140 days every single year. So the benefits of implementing this program, which right now is at about $26 billion of need, is really amazing, and we're looking for all ways to implement it. I won't go too much into this, but basically what this says is we have about 30% of what we need in terms of available funding through competitive sources as well as already set aside sources such as Measure R or Measure M or any of the local returns, with 70 of it needed. And 70 of it needed could be through competitive federal opportunities that may or may not exist, or through helping write legislation that is specific to our need. With regard to the City of Avalon, part of our STP report did go into each of the city and each of the city's needs. And discussed in the report included the bicycle infrastructure needs, the pedestrian needs, zero-emission vehicle applications, which I did notice that, I don't know if, is there a plan to transition a lot of the golf carts to electric-based? I still notice a lot of them are working under gas-based. How many gas stations do you have on the island?
Just one.
One. Amazing. Anyway, just a note as I visit. And then I was told about the Five Corners Tremont Avalon Canyon Road pedestrian project. Also, in talking with Audra, who was great, she was telling me a lot about the national transit language with regard to the ferry, with regard to subsidizing of the ferry, and the need to be able to count the ferry miles so that we can demonstrate that there's a need for annualized revenue to come from them. So I understand that's been a very long fight that's been going on for many years, but the Gateway Cities is certainly happy to help in any way that we can to continue to submit, either on your behalf or help submit, to help lower the burden on your staff here. I also would like to come back, of course, for my own benefit, but also to be able to meet and continue the discussion with city staff on how we can help in any way. If any of the members of council or the public would like to access anything with regard to the STP, they can go to the Gateway City Council of Governments website, and there is a transportation initiative called the Strategic Transportation Plan. And there's what's called a dashboard with all of these different modes of transportation, as well as a map of each of the cities, including Avalon, that lists your projects, that lists descriptions of projects, that lists different funding opportunities. And again, I want to thank you very much for having me, and it was a pleasure to come here and present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by staff or the community?
Thank you very much. I know we've been working on this for a couple years, but I also wanted to thank you because I've heard a presentation a couple times, but I thank you so much for drilling it down for Avalon, for our community, so that members of the community can see the importance of us participating like the Gateway Cities and what information we really are getting out of participating in those meetings. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Cassidy. Thank you.
And enjoy. Hope you don't have to take an early boat back tomorrow.
We're actually going back on the 7:30 boat tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, announcements?
I have one, Mayor. I
Yes.
just want to remind the public that this Thursday, March 9th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., we will be having our second vehicle transportation study session.
Excellent. The community is invited.
Thank you.
And it will also be televised. And also, are there written communications?
I have none.
There's so many.
Pardon me, city manager report?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Just a few updates on some matters of importance to the City Council. We have received letters of support for the city's local coastal plan update, seeking grant funds to do that important work from Congressman Lowenthal, State Senator Ben Allen, from Supervisor Janice Hahn, and we've also been promised a letter, and we expect from Assemblyman Patrick O'Donnell and the company CEO Randy Harrell. The application that we will submit is due on May 31st to the California Coastal Commission, and we have asked for the letters of support by March 15th. Also, if anyone in the community wishes to write letters of support to show that these coastal matters are of interest, we would welcome those. I did want to update you on something that had come up in previous meetings on mid-year financials. The mid-year financials will be published this week and presented to the City Council and public at the March 21st, 2017 meeting. Going forward, the financials will then be updated on a monthly basis and published on your website. A quick update on VONS. The VONS project, Jenna Watkinson, who is the Public Affairs Director, responded that there are a few things in the works. She said that we have finally received feedback from residents and are currently in the process of getting a bid for window requests. There was a meeting supposed to be scheduled last week that wasn't held. I was assured in the communication that there would be a meeting tomorrow for those of you who are participating in CISA. She said that her optimistic guess or estimate is that they will begin construction at the end of April. That, of course, will require that they meet all conditions of the approval by the City Council, and she understands that. The fire chief has indicated that safety fencing needs to be constructed around the existing site. We want to see that done soon. They've been notified. Fire chief is on that initiative. We've also asked them to do this week is to cut the weeds, weed whack the weeds, and to clean up the site so that it will be more attractive. And it concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney report.
Nothing tonight?
Council member reports. Who would like to start?
Go right down the line. I attended the Gateway City Council of Government meeting on Wednesday, March 1st, and two great pieces of information I'm really excited to share. Many of us in this community use the Blue Line transportation over town from Long Beach into LA and whatnot. There are significant updates on the transportation of the Blue Line. There's additional sheriff's representations on the trains, which will reduce response times from approximately a half an hour to 5 minutes, as well as upgrades in general to the stations, the possibility of a more rapid express lane from Long Beach to Los Angeles via the Blue Line, more of a direct line, and $1 billion in improvements, including platform upgrades, synchronized lights, and new trains, 54 new trains. The Blue Line will be the first of the transportation system that will receive these upgrades. So that's really great for us in this community that travel out of Long Beach. And Governor Jerry Brown submitted the state of California's top 10 infrastructure projects to the new federal administration. And topping that list was upgrades to the 710 freeway. In addition to that, the Metro submitted its top projects, which their number one project included the 710 as well. So it was really great to hear that both Metro and the governor are aligned on the 710 upgrades as a priority and had moved those forward to the federal administration. I may be attending the March 15th Contract Cities Board of Directors meeting in Cerritos. If I make it back on a flight in time, I would like to attend that meeting. So just in case I do, I'm reporting that out. And I will be attending the Edison, City of Avalon, and CPUC meeting tomorrow morning. And that's all I have.
I'm good.
Okay. Councilmember Sampson?
I'd like to ask you a question, Mr. Jenkins. You mentioned there's a meeting tomorrow with the Vaughns. Is that what you said?
No, sir. I apologize if that was misunderstood. There is a meeting tomorrow with representatives of Edison, Southern California Edison.
Okay, so there's nothing to do with Vaughns there.
But I did say, yes, I'm sorry.
Jenna
I did
Watkinson?
say that there is a conversation tomorrow with the residents who are part of CISA to talk about the progress being made, hopefully progress being made on the windows, installations for and that was my understanding. I was told that today.
Yeah, I need to understand exactly when that's going to happen because I need to be a part of that.
Let me, Miss Cook. I think if you are familiar?
I at least want to know what's going on.
Thank you.
We have had a weekly phone call scheduled between myself, Michelle Black with CISA, Sam Schenck with Vaughns, Jenna Watkins with Vaughns. I am not aware of a separate meeting with the CISA group. So if I can find out for you, Councilman, if there's an extra meeting happening actually with the residents, and I can get that information to you as early as possible.
Yeah, please do, because I don't like the way these meetings have gone down. There's really not much progress being made that I know of. I mean, can you report on any progress that's been made between?
Yes.
Okay, would you give us some good info?
Do you want me to do that now, or I was going to update all of you?
Oh, you were? Okay.
I'll let Mr. Jenkins finish, and then, let you finish your report, and then I'll give you an update on several projects at once.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That would be really insightful for me, and it's something that I really welcome. But at the same time, I'm very apprehensive of being positive about it because it's a year and a half now. It's been a year and a half that they're behind schedule. They have not shown up to one meeting. Nobody from Vaughns has been here to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Hey, this is what we're going to bring into your community. Can we give you an update? Can we give you some insight on what we do, what we're planning, and what we want to do, and what we want to provide your community with? Nothing. We've gotten nothing from them, so I'm not very happy with Vaughns right now. So any communication they have with the public or with this CISA organization, I'd like to know about it. the nuances of well, the city's not backing Vaughn's or CISA's holding the project up. That's just a bunch of baloney. We're in full support of this, and we're waiting for Vaughn's to come to us and let us know what they're doing and what they're going forward with. There's 35 conditions of approval. Not one of them has been met yet, and they're telling us that they're going to start construction in April. I don't think so. I don't think so. I hope so, but I really doubt it, and I don't think so. I met with the new lieutenant here. His name's John Hawking. He's going to be our new station commander for LA County Sheriff's. He's a very insightful man. He's been on the police force for, I believe, 26 years. I'm going to be pretty hopeful that he's going to do a great job. I believe he's going to be our new lieutenant. We had a very in-depth conversation, and if anybody would like to know the particular things that we talked about, I'd be happy to discuss it with you at any time. No one more than myself is more critical of this particular assignment for Avalon because we are a little bit off the grid. We're a little different. Our kids are different, not in a bad way, but in a really cool, good way. We have 35 bars in this town, as you know, and we can't go around harassing people that drink. Although if there's an angry drunk out there, we definitely want to get them off the grid. There's things like this that we discussed, and we also discussed terrorism, active shooters, things like this that I'm very concerned with, and I'm concerned with it behind the scenes. And so is the police department, and they're well equipped to deal with situations like this. The last thing is, where are we with Edison? So you guys are having a meeting tomorrow? Is that it, with the Public Utilities Commission, Edison, and Councilman Cassidy said she was going to be there as well? Is the council invited to this, or is it just something that is it a public affair? What?
It's a meeting where 2 council people can attend. I believe the mayor and Councilmember Cassidy are going to attend.
Okay, and then they'll report out.
We'll report out
to us. Okay.
We have shared with them.
How will we be reported out to? I mean, would that be on email?
Email. It'll be in various forms, but we want to get out as much information. We have submitted on the 14th of February questions that are issues. Ms. Jung from SCE was provided with those topics for our discussion, and we always go into these meetings optimistic that we'll come out with more information and good information. Then we'll report that out to you tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, that's something that's really important. It's actually the most important thing. I mean, between the food and the water, I don't know where we're at. It's like with Edison and Vaughn's. I seem to do my reports on them every week because I'm so frustrated with them, and they just keep holding us up. They patronize the people of Avalon, and that's why I show my frustration, because the people of Avalon are frustrated. So I'm just showing what I'm getting from the general public, and I also have my own opinion about things as well, and I'm not afraid to say that as well. Let's see. I think that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson?
Being gone for the last 3 weeks, I have nothing to say.
I don't know if Dan was going to make another presentation on the flooded cars, but were you going to talk about that? Okay. We are still soliciting information. There, we have the Long Beach, City of Long Beach permit or application form, and we also have Caltrans. So fill out both of those. I did get a call today that that parking lot is the City of Long Beach's parking lot. They bought it from Caltrans a while ago. So that's bad for Long Beach, good for us. So, anyway, and I don't know, Audra, if you were going to, should we talk about the elevator lift just for an update? I wasn't prepared. No, you're always prepared. We've talked about it twice, so I know you're prepared. Oh, no.
This is off topic, so I apologize, Council, if I'm not 100% prepared. As you know, the Council determined to take the CDBG funds that we received through the LACDC to build an elevator at the Beacon Hill Senior Apartments. And after a lot of work, the owners of the building came back and said that they didn't want the elevator. And so now we're moving forward with a chairlift.
Yes.
And that's what's going on. So there'll be something to help the people get up to the if they live on the second floor. It just won't be as grandiose.
Yeah.
Saffron didn't want the Saffron?
Yeah.
Correct.
Why didn't they want the elevator? I'm not.
Well, I don't have all that. There's a lot of reasons.
Is there?
Some of them were financial. Some of them were aesthetic.
Weren't we going to get a grant for that?
But the maintenance afterwards, the elevator permits and all the other things that are involved.
Oh, yes.
And the
Annual.
fact that it's a small property were some of the reasons that were cited. But I think we've come up with a solution that will at least address the need and use some of our CDBG funds. And I did have a conversation with the city manager about what project we could do to use the rest of those funds, and we'll be bringing that back to the city council once we have an idea what the lift is going to cost.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot at all.
No, that's okay. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Also, there's chairs in the front here and some other ones, so have a seat, everybody. There's no reason to stand. You can still walk out whenever you want, but sit down for now. Okay, oral communication. This is an opportunity for people to address. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not. It's after Amanda gives us our update.
Finish your announcement. I was just going to be first in line.
Oh, okay.
Are you going
Oral
on?
Okay, but if this is under oral communications, no action will be taken. We're limiting you to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to update the council and the community on what's happening with some of our big projects in town. I'll start with Vaughn's because Councilman Sampson had asked about that. Mr. Jenkins covered a couple of things. I did hear just late this afternoon that the material for the safety fencing is supposed to arrive on the island tomorrow. They're going to start work on Thursday. Jordahl Construction is doing that work. They will also be doing the weed abatement. So that should be happening Thursday. I also had a communication with Michelle Black, who is the attorney kind of representing the CISA group. She acknowledged that they had not sent out an email blast recently to all of their members. And if there's anyone out there who thinks they should be part of the CISA group and they have never heard from anyone, they should get in touch with Roberta Black at the Catalina Lodge. Let's see, Vaughns. The Vaughns are their prospective construction timeline is that they have about a month's worth of site work once they demo the buildings, and then the grading has to sit there for 8 weeks dormant so that it can settle and compact, and then they would be proceeding with construction. Their goal is that 8-week quiet time happens during the summer. So that's what we're hoping will happen. Zane Gray. The city has issued a demo permit for 2 of the buildings on the property, not the Pueblo. The Pueblo that encompassed the Zane Gray's original property will be protected during construction and renovated and restored to reflect its historic character. As required by the city, a historic resource evaluation and project analysis was conducted in 2014 by the Architectural Resources Group, a highly qualified conservator firm, and the evaluation determined that the rear building and the garage building were not qualify as historic structures. Both of those structures will be demolished. The location of the garage apartment will be the new entry to the hotel. A new building will be constructed to replace the upper rear building. The entry is designed to provide a taxi pickup drop-off zone, employee parking, and trash enclosure. The entry will also include an elevator.
May I ask a question on Zane Gray? Or are you done with Zane Gray?
You can ask about Zane Gray.
How did they ever resolve the parking? Because it seemed to me it was just going to be a turnaround and a couple little spots. Did they?
It's a turnaround and 2 employee parking spots.
That is, I'm sorry. That's
And
that's crazy to me.
what about their Did they need a water allocation? It's been several years since I remember hearing this.
They are not increasing the number of hotel rooms.
So there's no water allocation
Correct.
in play here?
Correct.
Okay.
And for those of you that are aware of this issue, the existing sewer lateral that was at risk is going to be abandoned, and they will be putting in a new sewer lateral and a new main. They think it's going to go across Chimes Tower. Currently, the sewer lateral goes underneath other private property. So,
do we have any plans for a walkway up to there? Do you know about that? Of some kind of an easement, maybe just a painted walkway? I mean, because it's kind of dangerous for people that walk up there.
Not that I know of.
I think we ought to start thinking about that right now. If they're going to redo that hotel, there's going to be a lot of traffic up and down there. There's no easement for anybody to walk on. They're just basically walking on the street. Same as up here to the Holiday Inn. So we got to do something about that. I know it's Holiday Inn up there. That's not necessarily our road, but we should do something to help mitigate the safety for the general public that uses that road for pedestrian traffic. There's nothing for them. Can I ask you a question on the Vons?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you said you talked about demo and grading, and now we need to talk about windows before we talk about any of this stuff. I mean,
well, I have been advised that I can't issue the demo permit until they have provided us with the signed agreement that addresses on how they're going to replace the windows, who they're going to replace, how they're going to replace.
They need to replace the windows, not
That's
an
not
agreement.
what the conditions of approval said. The conditions of approval said they had to provide us with the agreement that shows that it's going to be funded and it's going to.
I'm the one who defined the condition of approval. It was a condition of approval that I set forward. I'm not arguing with you, but I'm brainstorming with you. That's what I said, Scott. Okay, you were here when I said that. I said they will replace the windows before any construction proceeds.
Here's the issue.
I know what I said.
I'm not doubting you, but here's what the conditions say, and this may be the reason why they worded it the way they did. It's reasonable for Vons to have to mitigate their noise and that they're going to pay for it. But it's maybe a hardship to try to make sure that you have 20 construction projects all finished before Vons is able to proceed with construction. It's my understanding that they're going to reach an agreement on who gets them. They're going to set the money aside to pay for it, and then they will work with the homeowners so that the work happens at a time that is convenient to the homeowner. So if the homeowner doesn't want their windows replaced till next December, it doesn't hold up this giant construction project because one family doesn't want the work being done until later on. The money's there to do it, the effort's there, and the willingness is to do it, but to try to get all of the windows actually physically replaced is not how the condition of approval, and CISA is moving forward to get that agreement in place.
I haven't heard that from any member of CISA, and I know them all. I'd like to see those windows in before any construction begins.
Then it's my humble opinion you would have to bring it back and change the conditions of approval because that's not how it's working.
I didn't change them. I set them straight to begin with. I didn't change them. I didn't change them into what you're telling me they are. You guys changed them into what I said. Okay, you warped my opinion is what you did. You took what I said, you took it out of context, and you wrote it down. Okay, I'm standing up for the people that live in the neighborhood, and I would like them to have their windows in before any construction begins.
Mayor Pro Tem has a comment.
And I understand both sides of the issue, but if I have a CUP, a rental unit that needs to get its windows replaced, I don't want to have those windows replaced this summer when that thing is rented. I want to have the option of when I have my unit down to get the windows replaced.
They've had a year and a half to do it. Why are we coming down to this summer? Because it's convenient for Vons. Why don't we do this? What's convenient for the people in the surrounding area?
I think that's what we're doing. We're saying, when do you want your windows replaced?
And I think council member, I think the other issue is that, and I can't vote on any of the Vons stuff, but there are three of you there. So here, that voted on that. So I don't know if it's a matter of looking back. If because you say I, but I don't know if I is we because they're not speaking. So,
There's three of us that voted.
I know.
We'll
There was only two people that agreed on this.
Right,
I was
we
the
will-
one who put forward most of the conditions of approval. I think Ole added the CIRV. Everything else was something that I stacked on there because I did my homework and I did what I was supposed to do. Regardless of how I was, I waited till that night to vote on the issue.
Right.
But I had these conditions of approval set because it was something I felt that was important one way or another, whether the vote went this way or that way. We know how the vote went. The conditions of approval was set forward by 2 votes.
understand.
Okay, that's me. Ole just happened to, I agreed with what Ole's condition of approval was, and he agreed to what the other 34 conditions of approval were that I put on there, or 24, or whatever they were. I know there was a bunch of them. We want to go back in the records and set it straight. Let's do that. But right now, I'm gonna go to bat for CISA. I'm gonna go to bat for the people in the surrounding area, and I'm gonna do it very aggressively and forward to the point until these people are happy with what they have, every single last one of them. Okay? So, anyway, Amanda, go ahead with your...
Okay, the very last one I want to tell you about is that the city has not issued a demo permit for 133 Butaloo. I understand it's out on Facebook, it's being talked about in the grocery store that they're going to start tearing this building down tomorrow. The city has not issued a demo permit for 133 Butaloo. We have told the owner that they have to do a historic resource evaluation report, just like Zane Gray did, just like the Catherine Hotel did, and before we will do anything with them, they have to provide that report. So, and I would also like to ask, because we do have a lot of projects happening, if you have a question about what's happening with a project, call 310-510-0220, extension 110, and ask me. Because everything that's happening with these projects is public record. And so I'm happy to tell you what's happening. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. That was very thorough.
It was very nice.
Yeah. Okay.
My name is Judy Greer with Friends of the Library. I live at 355 Descanso Avenue, and I want to introduce you to our wonderful new librarian. This is Morgan Pershing, and if you come on Tuesday to the last digital evening from 7 to 9 at the library, she will again be conducting this one. So say hello to Morgan.
Hello, council members, mayor, everyone else. I fought really hard to get this job. I wanted it, and I believe sincerely in the power of public libraries to change lives. So I invite you all to come visit us at the library, and I'm excited to make the library a hub of this community as it should be, and to work with all of you as partners. And you all included, the public is the most important part of a public library. So please come down.
Are you guys giving away an iPad on Thursday?
We are. Will that make you come? It's on Tuesday.
So,
yes, we are.
What is the meeting going to be about that night as well? Do you know offhand?
There are many opportunities with the databases we have, like you can learn a language for free and all these things you can do for free, and I'll be going over what those are, all the things you can do with your library card for free.
Okay. What time is that now? 7 o'clock?
7.
7 o'clock. Show up at the library this Thursday at 7 o'clock? And
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
So not this Thursday?
No.
Kids and adults.
Great. Kids
Next
and adults?
Yeah, everyone.
And you
Come
could
on
win
down.
a new iPad, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Avalon, Morgan. Yeah.
Here's more bad news.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Jeff Lawrence, Senior Project Manager with Southern California Edison. Here to give you an update on our Stage 3 water rationing plan here briefly. About a month ago, we announced that we were adjusting the rationing levels based on a significant storm in January for customers in Avalon and in Middle Canyon, down from either 50 or 40% rationing down to 25% rationing. Since then, on February 19th, we received a second significant storm, and it contributed a large gain to the water level in Middle Ranch Reservoir, as well as our entire groundwater system. And the water elevations in our aquifers have improved significantly. This winter's storms have increased the water level at Middle Ranch Reservoir by 423 acre feet, bringing the total as of last Thursday, March 2nd, to 524 acre feet, right around 49-50% of its overall capacity. Based on the condition assessment of Middle Ranch Reservoir and our entire water system, we're pleased to announce that today we submitted a compliance filing with the California Public Utilities Commission to deactivate Stage 3 mandatory water rationing and activate Stage 1 mandatory conservation. Nice. So, very good news.
Nice.
Essentially, this will eliminate mandatory water allotments for customers' water use. And we'll go back to simply prohibitions and restrictions that were in place, essentially in Stage 3 with some minor changes that I'll talk about in just a minute here. So that is effective immediately today. It was just a compliance filing with the California Public Utilities Commission, and it's accepted upon receipt. So effective immediately.
Okay. Excuse me. Is it possible that I cancel this meeting right now? We all go home and take a long shower or hop in our bathtubs.
I'm going to have to jump ahead to my conservation talk. But no, it is great news, and we're very pleased to making this adjustment as quickly as possible. There are some communications that are in the works, but we didn't want to delay our announcement to prepare those communications. So there will be a bit of a lag, but we're making it effective today. So please spread the word to your neighbors and residents that water allotments are no longer in effect.
Facebook is going crazy right now, I'm sure.
I hope so.
I don't want to throw in a moment of bad news here, but I'm going to ask the question anyway because it's fresh in my mind. So worst case scenario, we get no more rain. We're at 50% capacity. Hypothetically, we hope we never go back into phase 2 or phase 3. But if we were to go back to phase 2 sometime in the summer, if we were forced to, would we carry the same allocations based on 2012? Or would Edison change that and do it based on further years when we were in rationing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is my understanding if you were to continue through various stages of rationing and not exit Stage 1, you'd have to go back to the same baseline year, as I understand it.
Okay.
But right now we have a very conservative forecast in terms of Middle Ranch Reservoir water level, and we do not anticipate hitting Stage 2 levels this summer. So we believe the soonest that would occur would be April of 2018.
Okay.
And that's with a real conservative forecasting method.
Because that would be big difference.
Go back to phase 2.
So soon we'll begin removing flow restrictors on customers that have received 2 or more violations. You'll see our crews out there removing those flow restrictors. What I want to stress, though, is that we are in Stage 1 mandatory conservation. So there are a number of water use restrictions in effect and prohibitions. I encourage everyone to view Schedule 14.1 at sce.com to review all those restrictions and prohibitions. The one significant change that I will read to you is pertaining to watering and irrigation. So the change with that in Stage 3 was that you're allowed to water once per week, I believe 1 hour a day on Tuesdays only. And now under Stage 1, the watering of plants, gardens, or ornamental landscaping by drip irrigation or hand watering with a quick-acting positive action shutoff nozzle or turf and lawns with sprinkler systems shall be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. during Pacific Daylight Savings Time on any day of the week. So from 7 to 9 and from 5 to 7, any day of the week, you can resume irrigating and watering under those conditions. So, but all the other prohibitions and restrictions under Stage 3 do remain in effect. The trigger for Stage 1 water rationing is 600 acre feet in the reservoir, so we're still a little ways from that. We'll see what March brings us. If we do forecast being in Stage 1 through the summer, we'll be refreshing all the marketing materials that are in the community with a different piece of artwork for Stage 1 so that everyone will understand the different staged conservation that we're in. In terms of additional timelines, We'll be running ads in the newspapers the week of March 20th and 27th to get the word out. Hopefully the word will just spread naturally before then, but in case anyone hasn't heard, it will be in the newspapers. We'll be reaching out to local community stakeholders over the course of the next couple weeks, which includes a meeting in Two Harbors tomorrow afternoon. We'll be sending out direct mailing to all of our customers in early April, informing them of their water allotments being discontinued and what the restrictions and prohibitions under Stage 1 are. I do want to stress, though, the need for conservation still. We are in Stage 1. The drought is not over yet, and that's consistent with the drought situation in the state of California. As of January 31st, the U.S. Drought Monitor classifies 50% of California, mostly in southern and central California, as having drought conditions, with 20% of California having severe or extreme drought conditions. So even with all this rain, 20% of the state is still in extreme or exceptional drought conditions. Currently, the state of California has not discontinued the declared drought emergency. According to the State Water Resources Control Board, the full picture of the state's hydrologic water conditions for 2016-17 remains unclear and subject to a number of variables at least through the end of the spring. The board has extended the governor's May 2016 emergency regulation and maintains a number of the same requirements that apply currently, which is consistent with our Stage 1 mandatory conservation plan. The board is encouraging all small-scale water suppliers, which we are of one, less than 3,000 customers, to maintain conservation measures in place. Additionally, climate science indicates that the southwestern United States is becoming drier, increasing the likelihood of severe and prolonged droughts, thus reinforcing the need to continue to utilizing the conservation measures that we've implemented. So we are easing the mandatory rationing, but we do want to stress conservation is still essential. We're not in the clear on the drought yet, neither is the rest of the state of California. And in line with what our approach has been to mitigate the impacts of the drought, SE will continue system enhancements that increase our water supply and seek all available grant funding opportunities as we've previously communicated. And on March 21st, Val Frankel with Greeley and Hansen LLC will be presenting the results from the desalination expansion study that's been concluded. And in closing, we'd like to thank the Catalina customers and visitors for their exemplary efforts in reducing their water use over the last couple years to help preserve our groundwater resources and get through this drought.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Can we keep our restrictors on if we want them?
We've actually talked about that internally, and we do need to remove them, unfortunately.
Oh.
And there's a number of reasons for that.
Okay.
They're not fabricated for long-term use.
Okay.
So,
I think you had said that before.
Yeah.
But it's not going to cost us $200 to have it taken off?
There is a fee that will be assessed on customers' bills. That's consistent with what's been our tariff since we implemented
Okay, mine
rationing.
was voluntary. At the very beginning, do you recall that?
I don't think we'll charge you for the voluntary one.
It's a shame you have to charge anybody, really. And so the bottled water, that's kind of, I don't know, it seems like that's kind of worked good for everybody. So if they want to keep the bottled water in the restaurants going,
that was an effort the community took on their own, and
Right.
It wasn't a mandate by us. We applaud the effort, and however they want to proceed is entirely up to them.
Okay. Great. Questions? Oh, yes.
Follow up on, I'm sorry, Pam Albers, 217 Calle del Sol, to follow up on what I thought was a very good question, because we, in fact, know that we've been through periods of drought, and in between the periods of drought, somehow the people who use the most water end up being better off once drought is reinstated, and it's because the language that's in the tariff is really not very good and doesn't address a situation where you're going to have rolling droughts. I think we all need to accept that as our new reality. And so I would just implore you to include that as an item in your discussion tomorrow, because there needs to be some disincentive for people to just go hog wild, thinking that it's going to benefit them once and when rationing is reinstated. And then the other question I have, because we still don't know whether those of us who don't live in Hamilton Cove are getting all desal water, or are we going to be getting some out of the reservoir. But my understanding is that there was a letter sent out to Hamilton Cove residents about chlorine byproducts exceeding the parts per billion that the EPA has designated as being safe. And so to the extent that our water's being mixed, I'm just curious as to whether we will receive similar kinds of notices. Thank you.
Jeff, did you want to address that?
I'm not really involved with that effort and can't really speak to it. But I do know that letters did go out to the customers in Hamilton Cove. If they have questions, there is a number to contact our technical specialists at Catalina, and they can answer any of those questions.
Jeff, you had mentioned that there's going to be a stakeholders meeting at Two Harbors. Is that tomorrow?
Yes, it is.
Was anybody from the city of Avalon invited to that meeting?
I'm not sure. Adeline, do you know if we extended an invite to anyone with the city of Avalon? Did we extend an invite to anyone with Avalon to the Two Harbors meeting tomorrow? I'm not sure. Yeah, so it was focused on the interior camp directors and
okay, because we do represent the stakeholders and the ratepayers in Avalon for the whole island, so as well. So it would probably be appropriate if somebody from the city was invited to those meetings at the West End next time.
It's one reason why I announced it tonight, that you're welcome to attend as well.
Oh, we are? Okay. So that's our personal invitation. What time is the meeting?
I believe it's at 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. So let me ask you this. So Edison was delivering water from the Wrigley Reservoir, which is diverted down to Hamilton Cove. That water also makes its way to Baker Tanks, which feeds Avalon as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So does that mean that when the desalination unit is producing too much water and it pumps water over to the Baker Tanks as well, does that mean that those two water sources are mixed together at the Baker Tanks, or does Baker Tanks, there's 3 Baker Tanks, so does one Baker Tank in particular take the extra water from the desalination unit and pump it up to Baker Tank?
The Baker tanks receive water from both sources.
From both sources, yes,
right.
They do. So
all 3 tanks receive water from both sources.
Okay, so they do mix then. Mm-hmm. In other words, Middle Ranch water, our natural water source at Middle Ranch, that water which is pumped up to Wrigley Reservoir, then subsequently pumped down to Baker Tanks, that mixes with the desalinated water. Okay, because we were told, or somebody had alluded to the fact that we couldn't run a pipeline from the desalination units up to the 9 million gallon tank Wrigley Reservoir because the waters can't be mixed. Once the water is processed, like from the desalination unit, it can't be mixed with the water that we get from Middle Ranch. So I guess that's just hyperbole. That's not really true then, correct? That the waters can be mixed. I mean,
I'm not sure where you got that information from, but I don't believe that to be correct.
Yeah,
what you had originally heard.
Oh, you mean so they can be mixed? So that doesn't.
What they were talking about is bringing water from the mainland over here, and there's different treatment of the water on the mainland than the water we have here.
Okay, yeah, that's
right.
true.
Barging
but
water
we can actually, theoretically, we could pump the water from the desalination unit to the 9 million gallon tank if we had the pumps in the means to do it.
If the infrastructure was in place,
right, okay.
You could store desalinated water at Wrigley.
Okay, I was under the impression that we couldn't mix the 2 waters from Middle Ranch and from the desalination unit, but
you wouldn't mix it from Middle Ranch. That's untreated water. Wrigley Reservoir is treated water.
Right, but the Wrigley Reservoir water comes from Middle Ranch and it's
correct.
Treated in the process of getting there. Okay, I see. Thank you. Appreciate your input.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Paula Patterson, 221 Whitley, and I just want to remind everyone that the polls are still open for another hour if you haven't voted today, and it's a worthwhile measure. So I'm here this evening to urge you to issue an official declaration making Avalon a safe and welcoming place for all of its residents. As I know you must be aware, I have seen numbers posted declaring anywhere from 65 to 73% of our residents identify themselves as Hispanic demographically. I do not have official numbers, but as all of us are aware, a portion of these people are undocumented. They are an integral part of our community and lend a welcome diversity to our culture and history. If that does not speak to you, then I must mention they are also a substantial part of our workforce. Doing jobs here in Avalon, employers often struggle to fill with our small population and high seasonal demand for services. Please note, I have not used the word sanctuary until now, as the implication of this title are unclear and vary from city to city. Unfortunately, too many people get bad information on what a sanctuary actually is. No one who commits violent, felony, or serious crimes gets a free pass. Most cities cooperate with immigration on those cases. Rather, sanctuary means that our local police and agencies don't profile our residents to run immigration checks on them. Mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, states, and I quote, "What we don't do is ask local police officers to enforce federal immigration laws, and that's an official LAPD policy that has been enforced for nearly 40 years. That is for everyone's good, because trust between police and the people that they serve is absolutely essential to effective law enforcement," unquote. The people we should be protecting are our neighbors, our valedictorians, our co-workers. We should not treat them like suspects. The prevailing federal policy breaks up families and negatively fuels a broken immigration system. Sanctuary also means that when undocumented persons are victims or witnesses to crimes, they don't have to fear deportation. This keeps our community safer and brings us closer by sharing common values of caring and respect. Some people may object to the argument that the undocumented drain resources from our citizens. I would like to bring awareness to the fact that the majority of the undocumented acquire a Social Security number that does not necessarily belong to them, or they pay under a federal tax identifier number because they were told paying taxes would help them get citizenship. They pay alongside others in the workforce the same state and federal and income taxes deducted from anyone's checks, including Social Security and Medicare deductions. This money remains unclaimed, as the undocumented generally do not file tax returns. This results in a windfall of billions of dollars, statewide and federally, which generally is not mentioned in this argument. In addition, the process of obtaining citizenship or even a green card is a costly, arduous endeavor, taking years to accomplish at a cost of thousands of dollars. People that are in the midst of this process can still potentially be deported in spite of their best intentions. I would ask that this issue comes to debate amongst you and be placed on the next agenda. Roundups of the undocumented are happening across the nation daily. It is imperative Avalon sends a message of compassion to our friends and neighbors and does the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in that regard, is this something that the council would like to dabble in and maybe have some, I don't know. Personally, I'm in the sanctuary city because of the federal dollars. I know there's a little bit of concern with that. However, there are prime examples, even Massachusetts, I've sent some information. There's some beautiful wording out there for cities that want to get involved to protect and put our residents' minds at ease. And I'm all for that concept of, I know then talking to Hocking and LA County, they are not going to be asking for immigration papers. They're, but again, like Paula said, I mean, if somebody has committed a felony and they go through the courts and they're found guilty, then yes, those folks will be deported. But other than that, they've given us assurance that that's how the county is going to operate. But I don't know, I definitely want to hear what you have to say, Carlos, but I don't know if that's a direction.
I just wanted to add to it.
Yes.
I don't think that everyone here is saying, oh, sanctuary city. I think what people want to know is their rights, and they want to feel support. They want to be able to come to somebody and get the information they need for their own sake and for their children's sake.
Yeah.
I understand that the government officials have about who comes into the country. But what would we do without immigrants? What would Avalon be? The city's population is 70.3 native born and 29.7 foreign born. I went on the census and I got all this info. Avalon has a long tradition of really standing together as a community. Avalon needs to send a message that it stands with its immigrants community, that it's not going to be divided, and frankly, that we're not going to stand for marginalization of people that are part of our community. Right now, I believe that at this moment in American history, we're either going to take a stand or we're going to let bullies run this country and target our diverse community. We must stand together as one right now. So many people fear they'll be deported and separated from their children. It's so wrong for children to go around being afraid that their parents might be taken away. And I feel so much compassion, and I just want people to know their rights, and I think people deserve that because, I mean, like we always support each other, and I think this is the time that we as Avalon stand together.
Very nicely said.
Very good.
Annie, one of the first requests you had was, do we want to explore this further? And I think that's a good idea. Second to that, it's a good time, given where we are, to invite Congressman Lowenthal's office back out and to do some public workshops, both in English and Spanish, because they provide such great resource in helping people. So I'm happy to reach out myself to Donna Carlos and invite the Congressman's office back out and do some public outreach.
Hi. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Herlinda Chico, and I'm the new Field Deputy for Supervisor Janice Hahn. So I represent this area. I'm her liaison to this community. The area that I represent is actually all of Long Beach, Signal Hill, Avalon, and Catalina Island. I'm very, very familiar with Long Beach. I live in Long Beach, and I'm learning about this beautiful island. And the supervisor really wants to make sure that there is an open line of communication and that I become very familiar with all of the stakeholders. In fact, she said it was a priority. So a couple of weeks ago, I was here for the first time. I met with the mayor and attended the Chamber's board meeting. I've met with Councilmember Cassidy at the Gateway Cities COG meeting, where I represent the supervisor. I'm here today and meeting with all the stakeholders, just trying to learn as much as I can about how we can be of assistance. To address some of the comments earlier about the role of law enforcement, the Board of Supervisors took action and so has instructed the Sheriff's Department, the LA County Sheriff's Department, to limit their interaction with ICE. That if it's a criminal act, if there's somebody who has committed a criminal offense, that's a different story. But that we will not use our resources to verify someone's citizenship in this country. LBUSD has also done the same thing. They submitted a letter to the public reinforcing that their students and their families are safe in their schools. So I hope that brings some assurances. Also, since the supervisor has been in office, City Manager Jenkins has reached out to us with his weekly newsletter, and so keeps us updated on some of the happenings here on the island. One of the things he asked for was support with the LCP planning grant application, and I think he mentioned earlier that the supervisor is supportive. She is. I have her letter right here that I will submit. We also spoke to Roberto Uranga, who's a council member in the city of Long Beach, but he also happens to sit on the California Coastal Commission. he's very encouraging when I let him know about this letter and how the supervisor was supportive of the application. He too was supportive and encouraged CCC certification. So that's a good sign. So I will leave this here. I am available. I will try to make as many trips out to the island as I can. And just so you know, the supervisor plans to attend the Conservancy Gala on April 1st. So she will be making a trip out to the island. We're going to try to get her scheduled so that she can arrive a little early, so she can, meet with some of the stakeholders and hopefully with the City Council.
And did you want to introduce
Pamela?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Yes. So I brought Pamela Manning with me, who is in government relations for the Department of Public Works. And I will be bringing her with me when I can. She's been an incredible resource, especially when we're meeting with the stakeholders. We've discussed Pebbly Beach. We've discussed roads. We've discussed a lot of different issues. Yes, a lot of infrastructure. And so she's also a wealth of information. She's worked for the county for a very long time. And so she's familiar with the programs that the county can assist with. In fact, we had a very good conversation with the city manager this afternoon about some of the programs that the county offers that may be able to help the city of Avalon.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. Just a little update. Gail Fornacier, 106 Olive. Just a little update on behalf of the Catalina Island Museum. Some upcoming exciting news and things that the community should know about. This Sunday is Islander Day at the museum. So from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., it will be free admission for all Islanders. Please be prepared if we don't recognize your face to make sure you bring proof of residency. But Edison bill, commuter book, those kind of things will work. Of course, we will recognize most of you, but please come by on Sunday between 10 and 5 to enjoy the galleries and the digital theater and the museum store. And then just an announcement for next week, the schedule at the museum will change. Our operating hours just modified slightly because we are preparing for our large Chihuly exhibition. Dale Chihuly, glass artist, is going to be taking over the museum, except for the history galleries, of course. But all the glassworks left Washington yesterday on a couple of big trucks, and they are on their way down here. So we are preparing for that. The installation team arrives next week, so when they do that, we have to put an 18-foot long chandelier in our lobby. And so to be on the safe side, we need to close for a couple days. So there will be just some modifications to our schedule mid to late next week, just so everyone's aware, and we will open back up as soon as possible. So the hours will be on the door. We have to work a little bit with the team once they get here to make sure what exactly those days will be. And then just in preparation for that, Chihuly at the Catalina Island Museum opens to the public on Sunday, March 26th at 10 a.m. And we expect this exhibition to really benefit everyone in the community, all businesses, and it runs for 9 months, so it will go through December 11th. And we are inviting our members, so any members of the museum out there, or it's a perfect time to become a member, Saturday, March 25th, the day before it opens to the public, we're offering a preview to all members. So from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that day, please come by. You can see the exhibition before anyone else. And Dale Chihuly himself will be on island that day to be at that preview, and then also do a book signing between 11 a.m. and noon that day. So he will sign hardcover books, and we have those for sale in the museum store, or you can bring your own if you have one. And we look forward to everyone coming from far and wide to see this exhibition and benefiting the community for the next 9 months. So we hope you'll come and join us for the member preview, become a member if you're not, and enjoy the exhibition when they are here.
Great.
Thank you.
Very nice.
That's going to be very exciting.
Thank you, Gail.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jim Luchohan, President and CEO at the Catalina Island Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. I just wanted to provide you a little update of some of the exciting things we've been working on behalf of our community recently. Last week, another member of my staff and I attended the Visit California Outlook Conference in Santa Barbara, where Olympic athlete and world-renowned skateboarder Johnny Mosley previewed an episode of his new TV show, which was recently the pilot, which was recently filmed here on the island. So we're happy to announce that the island will be featured prominently in that new TV show. And we also, it was announced while we were there that Visit California will be bringing their board meeting here October 25th, 2017. There will be about 100 attendees. And the reason it's so large, the board is only 30 members, but we have representatives from all the major stakeholders like airlines, rental car companies, and so on who attend. And we've assured them we've managed to help bring Clydesdales here and even mention Chihuly as a standard so we can get all of their equipment here. They come with quite a load of equipment for their own meetings. The state has recently launched a program called Kidifornia, and as a complement to that, we are launching this week Kidalina. And Kidalina is going to promote family travel to the island, especially this spring, but certainly in an ongoing nature. And we will be taking this subject as our first opportunity to promote the information on our new blog. Our website that we launched several months ago has blog capacity. We just haven't turned it on, so this will be our first content to place on that blog. We'll be reaching out to members of the community in the next few days for any calls for content that they have that we might not already have in our possession as far as children's menus, children's pricing, bundling for families and adults who travel together on any offers like that. And so have those in mind, please, as we prepare to reach out to all of you for that. On the group sales front, which most of you know has been one of our strongholds for many months now, we delivered in the month of February 33 RFPs to area businesses. And we're especially heavy on the weddings during the month of February because we always promote the Island of Romance as our January, February primary topic, but we added a call to action on most of those outbound emails and websites to have your wedding on the Island of Romance, and so it generated a lot more RFPs along the wedding subject. The LA Olympic Committee made a presentation at that Outlook conference where they announced that Los Angeles and Paris are now the only two cities remaining in the competition for host destinations for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. If selected, LA will bring to the Long Beach Harbor area both the triathlon and sailing competitions. So we would have a great exposure there. And so I'll continue to track that and report back how that might benefit us. We'll have the first of our concert series March 18th on Wrigley Stage, beginning at 6 p.m. It will be Irish music. And our monthly board meetings and all of our committee meetings, for anyone who normally attends them, this is 1 month of the year where it is not on the third Thursday, but instead is on the fourth Thursday. So don't come next week. Please come on the 23rd instead. And we do not yet have a confirmed mixer host for that night. The final thing I'll close with, since Gail set me up for it so nicely on the Chihuly subject, the exhibit will be featured in a co-op ad in Southwest Air's magazine, In-Flight magazine, during the month of May. And so we look forward to that exposure as well.
That's great. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. That's nice. Thank you.
Nice, Jim.
Hi, Yolanda Montano. I just kind of want to echo a little bit of what Jim was saying about groups. I just wanted to see if we got an update on our Wi-Fi. The town has had a group here. They came in February twice and coming again February once and in March twice. And they're a big, huge group that is staying at different hotels and having parties, food, beverages, tours, and I believe, and I don't quote me on the numbers, but they've spent over $1 million in our town with them coming, and I'm hearing about the lack of Wi-Fi that we're having, and this is our off season, and to bring that kind of business to this island during our off season is huge, and we really need to step up our Wi-Fi bandwidth. Because we're doing our part to bring them here. So the city needs to be on someone, insist or something, and then everybody just got a notice that Catalina Broadband is raising their rates again, for what? So if we can really, really be on them to make our service better for our community and our visitors, so we can bring these corporate groups to our island so they can spend the amount of money that they're spending, because it benefits everybody.
Mayor, if I may, we need to look at our franchise agreement in regard to that, and that is something we have to do. I have to do. I know that the chamber executive is hosting a meeting where the topic is going to be broadband, and I've asked our IT specialist Patrick Grady to be in attendance on that, in part because he knows a lot more about those things than I do, and knows a lot about a lot of things that relate to technology, and maybe Jim has some comments in that regard. But we have to look at the franchise agreement and see what the provisions are there. B, the whole rate issue is an issue that we'll take a look at too, and C, though, is the broadband issue is something that is important, as you and others have described, and we'll see what would it take to upgrade that grade, what's the cost, and then how is that cost dealt with. So that's I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Jim, did you want to make a comment?
Just that in preparation for the meeting that the city manager just alluded to, I'm following up and closing some circles on some other information about the standards that are currently in place. Because there's sort of multiple layers that all sort of overlap quickly at this way we all use technology. There's access, depending on where you are in the city, where there are things that impede the service. There's a hotspot network that's currently in place along Crescent Street, which is aging infrastructure per Catalina Broadband, and has been sort of kept alive versus fully upgraded or updated. And many cities have taken this step, not city governments necessarily, through any combination of things. It might be the city government, it might be a merchants association, it might be through some other means. Many cities have taken on that aspect of the service and created a free Wi-Fi zone, and that may be very much where we would like to go.
Okay.
Won't go much beyond saying that we may, but that might be part of the solution that we come to. And then there's the bandwidth issue of how many people can get on the bus at once, and that's the bigger, harder one for us to fix here. So the first two, I think, are very fixable within the existing technology that's out there. But.
Great, thank you. Other comments from the community? Okay. I think it's time for a public hearing. And does somebody want to make the announcement, and then I will open it?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Thank you for having me here. Before going into public hearing, I would like to present a funding transportation funding that is set aside for Avalon. Thank you. That my colleague Susan Richen prepared for you tonight. I'm going to go over the presentation. We would start basically with the source of funding. We start with the state funding, which is Transportation Development Act, TDA state funds. In that category, we have TDA 8, which is the reason that I'm here for today, and TDA 3. TDA 8 basically is set aside for areas of the county that Metro does not provide service, such as North County, Santa Clarita, and Avalon. For TDA 3 is set aside for bike and pedestrian, which is the 2% of the share of the sales tax. This is state funding sales tax. Next source of funding is the local return funds. Prop A, which sets aside 25% of the share. Prop C, 20% of the share, and Measure R is 15% of the share. Measure M to go into effect beginning July 1st, and funding would trickle down sometime after the taxes are collected. So sometime in after September, maybe. That is 17% of the share. Next funding category is Prop A incentive funds. The set-aside fund is for ferry service and land service, which is the biggest chunk that Avalon receives of that. Last category call for projects. So far, all the funding that I mentioned are set-aside funds. Call for project is a competitive funding that Avalon, like any other city, could apply for. We start with the transportation. Am I pushing it too hard? TDA 8, which is unmet transit needs. It could go, the allocation is set aside already, but there could be a determination whether it should go to transit or streets and roads. And TDA 3 is set aside for bike and pedestrian usage. We have photos for you from Redondo Beach bike lane, and also new transit buses that you have received funding for. Prop A funding. Prop A was approved in 1980, and 25% of the share. 25% of the share is to be exclusively used for public transit. Prop C was approved in 1990, and 20% of the share of local return to be used for transit or transit-related projects, such as street improvements or bus stop improvements. Measure R is sets aside 15% for local return share, and it requires. I'm not touching it. Okay. It requires assurances and understanding. I try to be fast, so catch up with the slide. Jurisdictions are audited annually, and for compliance of all the forms that are applicable to Measure R. Since 1994, the competitive projects, Avalon has received a funding, a total of $3.4 million. The latest one was the funding that Avalon received in 2015-17 for a clean fuel fleet replacement project in amount of $1 million. And Avalon allocation for FY17 is totals $1.2 million. And the last slide, it shows the history of the funding. Sorry. We have the funding starting from FY07 to 2017 in each category, so you can review it. Okay, that was fast. Okay.
Thank you.
At least that's the. Do you have any questions regarding?
You're great.
Do you want me to go back to it and start all over again?
I'm sorry. So going forward, you're looking at $1.2 million for Avalon
for
2017.
For 2017 was. Let me see what was the total. Oh, sorry, this one. Yes, 1.2.
Okay.
Yes, for.
So prop or TDA 3 is bike and pedestrian. Is that something that applies to us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any funding that you would see up there applies to you, to
Okay.
the city.
Great, yeah, we could use that. Because I was just talking about pedestrian walkways
So
tonight.
the TDA Article 3 money is only $5,000 a year.
That's fine.
And so what we usually use that money for is to repair sidewalks that fall apart. So
Oh.
the bulk of that money historically goes to Lovers Cove.
Oh, I see.
Just because it's such a small amount of money, we can build it up over a couple years and then we draw it down.
Mhm.
But one of the things that's not listed on here in the call for projects was the Five Corners intersection. Susie probably just missed it. And that's like a off the top of my head, it's about a $2.4 million project. So that would have been in probably 17, 18. But that'll also hopefully show up next year on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any money sitting there unspent? Unspent? Like, okay, so Five Corners, that's sitting around?
No, Five Corners hasn't funded out yet, but it's there. It's earmarked for Avalon.
So we have money there.
Yes. And then
And is there there's a local
there's
share?
a local share of 20%.
Oh, okay.
There's matches for everything. That's kind of the hindrance to grants
Oh,
is that
I
you got to come up with you have to have skin in the game.
And that will be the issue that we will bring forward in the budget to talk about ranking those and maintaining a solid reserve too.
Right. Okay.
But the bulk of the money of the 1.2 million that we receive, 650,000 of that is for commuter subsidy.
Oh.
Right off the top.
Okay.
So and
Oh, I
that's
see,
and
sure.
then if you I think you guys all got a copy of this too. You can see that the funding kind of jumped up a little bit, and then it's remained pretty stagnant for the past couple of years. I'm working on that.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Does the community have any questions?
I think you have to open the public hearing.
Okay. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Okay.
We'd like to open the public hearing.
Public hearing. I have prepared a text that explains the reason that I'm here today and what we're trying to accomplish. And then I would open it up to public comments. And I'll start. The public portion of this meeting is held to hear testimony regarding the allocation of Transportation Development Act, TDA Article 8 funds. The California Transportation Development Act, enacted in 1972, provides the major source of state funds to support public transit services. 1/4 of a cent is collected as part of the statewide retail sales tax in this county and placed in a local transportation fund, TDA 3, 4, and 8, which is used to support public transportation within the county. The TDA fund is divided as follows. TDA 4 recipients receive 91.6%, TDA 3 is capped at 2%, and TDA 8 receives 6.4% share. By statute, most of the money, the 91.6 share, in Los Angeles County goes to support the operation of our regional bus service, Metro, and the municipal operators such as Long Beach Transit, Santa Monica, and so on. These services are funded in part by TDA Article 4. Additionally, some of the funds are used to support facilities for pedestrians and bicycles. This is known as TDA Article 3 for 2% of the share. Article 8 of the TDA requires that a proportional share, based on the population, approximately 6.4 share this year, of the sales tax revenue be allocated to those areas in the county that do not have metro service because they are located outside metro service area. These areas are in the Santa Clarita Valley, the Antelope Valley, and Catalina Island. Transit needs can reasonably be met through an expansion of existing transportation systems by establishing new systems or by contracting for services. However, if there are no unmet transit needs, which can be reasonably met with these funds, the funds may be used for local public streets and roads purposes. While the purpose of these hearings is to determine how TDA Article 8 funds should be allocated, your testimony about the transit needs may be useful to local decision makers who are planning possible uses for Proposition A, Proposition C, and measure our funds. The Los Angeles County Transportation Authority holds a public hearing each year to determine what transit needs exist in your community before recommending how these funds should be allocated. LA LAC MTA staff will compile your comments along with the comments made at all the hearings, including written comments received before the deadline. The Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, composed of local residents and social service providers, will consider your comments and make a recommendation to the TDA 8 hearing board. The hearing board will make a recommendation to the full Metro board. The Metro board will act in June to make the findings about the use of TDA Article 8 funds in your community. The LAC MTA's board's recommendations will be forwarded to the state for review and approval. If you wish to submit written comments in addition to or instead of testifying verbally, the record for all hearings will be kept open for 2 weeks after the conclusion of the public hearings. Written comments must be received by March 21, 2017 for all affected areas. Your written comments should be submitted to the following address: Armenia Saint, TDA Article 8 hearing, Metropolitan Transportation Authority, mail stop 99-4-3, 1 Gateway Plaza, Los Angeles, California 90012, Saint A at metro.net. The public testimony portion of the hearing will now begin. Please remember to state your name and any organization you represent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allow members of the public to make comments.
Audra McDonald, City of Avalon, and I would like to make my comment that I think that using strict population data to determine our funding is not fair for Avalon, and that we have to meet the transit needs of our million visitors every year. And sales tax use would probably be a much fairer way to allocate the TDA Article 8 funds.
Here, here.
Ditto.
Yep.
Nicely said.
Yes. No, I guess some of us, we just don't know what to care.
Yeah, I think everybody cares. You're kind of speaking for everybody, and we appreciate that.
And we appreciate your knowledge of that, so
Yes.
that you can speak intelligently on the issue. Any other comment? Scott, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, he was just. Okay.
What kind of difference would that make? Let's see, between the what she just mentioned, instead of per capita, then
on the million visitors.
yeah, then base it on the million visitors on the tax base. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it would make a huge difference because it's based on our year-round population. It doesn't take, and so.
Oh, I see. It's
Right, it's based on our, 3,900 people.
Right.
That's what our funding is based on. So North County and Santa Clarita, who have, 800,000 people, that's what their share is.
Mm-hmm.
But we're having to deal with, happily, all these people that are coming in using our city. They don't
Right.
have any other options when they get here. They can't drive their own car.
Right.
You know?
Oh, that's true.
I mean, our transit needs are really big for such a small town. I mean, they really are. And I think it's really hard to portray that when you're using a strict formula funding as your calculation.
and we're having a hard time meeting those needs too.
We are.
Just,
Yes. Just basic needs.
Yes, exactly.
7-day-a-week bus service, and just those small things.
Right. Even though we have most of our visitors during, let's say, a 4-month period, most of them for that matter, it would still help out if we could somehow prorate that against all that usage during that
That's
period
why
of
the
time.
sales tax thing is a beautiful idea, right?
Okay.
Because the sales tax figures come out and then they annualize that, and then that's what you get.
What, if I may, Mayor, the mayor had written a letter to the congressman in regard to this exact topic. There are other areas that also could benefit from a change in a rule to allow, for example, up in Lake Tahoe, they have the same issue with a resident population versus a tourist population. And so the rule change that would be needed we would, of course, encourage, as Audra said, we'd encourage Metro to be supportive of a rule change that would give us additional funds to meet the demand of tourist population. But there may also be allies as in other areas that have similar problems.
Signal Hill is a really good example. Signal Hill has a very small population base, but they have a huge business and they have a lot of need and they don't get a lot of this money. So just off the top of my head, I know for a fact that they were the ones that kind of came up with this idea originally.
So we would ask Metro to support a rule change in favor of what we're recognizing here?
Yes, and also
deficiencies?
Yes, sir. And also the committee that I believe Congressman Lowenthal is on is one that some other prominent on his side of this aisle, John Garamendi up from Northern California, Senator and our congressman, and then on the other side of the aisle, there's people who are aware of this issue. Don Young from Alaska, that they are familiar. So with Metro's support, with their influence and power and our wonderful relationship with them, if they would support rule changes, that would be very helpful, I think, to us. Being the only California city on an island in the Pacific Ocean.
So how do we go about initiating that change? I mean, does it start with the letters that have already been written?
Yes.
And then we just continue that dialogue?
Yes, sir. And I would argue also that it might take some more focused attention, but that'll be a topic for another meeting when I bring some things back to you for discussion.
Okay.
Just so you know, though, for it's a finite amount of money. So when we change it, if we were to get it changed, you're going to have, or the request for change is going to meet a lot of opposition from cities that have large populations because it's going to impact them. So it's not an immediate fix. It would be a long haul fight. Probably accomplished after I'm retired. So
no. You're very effective, Audra. So we'll
yeah. We'll see.
It's
just something to think about.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you for your insight.
Anybody else? Comments? I'll close the public hearing.
Yes, closing public hearing. Thank you for having me. See you next year.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you for being here.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to the consent calendars. I don't know where Cindy's going, but... What's that?
Sorry.
I'm going to talk about something.
Oh, right.
There,
yeah.
Oh,
it was off. Consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight's consent calendar has a few items on it. One, there will be an amendment, but that Ms. Ratty will mention at the end, or she may want to mention right now on the actions regarding the minutes from the February 7, 2017 and February 21, 2017 regular City Council meetings. Ms. Ratty, would you?
Mayor Pro Tem Olson will be abstaining when the vote's called for the February 21st actions because he was not present.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Ratty. We have item number 2 is adoption of an ordinance establishing temporary use permits. The recommended action is to recommend to the City Council adopt the ordinance adding section 97.1025 to Title 9 of the Avalon Municipal Code for and authorizing administrative approval of temporary permits. 3 is to ratify prior action to purchase a Crown Lift forklift for the wastewater treatment plant. The recommendation is to make the finding that the need existed for a purchase of a Crown Lift forklift for the wastewater treatment plant and ratify approval of an expenditure of $9,824.51 for ES Engineering to purchase the equipment. Item number 4 is an annual report on the development agreement between the City of Avalon and the Hamilton Pacific LLC. The recommended action is to accept and file the report, and I know that there may be some questions on that report. Item number 5 is adopt a resolution for the annual growth policy for the year 2017, the recommendation is to adopt that policy. Item number 6 is Yellow Jacket Control contract extension to Catalina Honey. Approve an additional 1-year extension of the Yellow Jacket Control contract with Catalina Honey and authorize the city manager to execute the amendment document. Item number 7 is purchase replacement fence panels for the Pebbly Beach Road K-Rail. The recommended action is to authorize the purchase of 15 K-Rail fence panels from Boulder Contracting Company at a cost not to exceed $13,500. Item number 8 is an update on the July 4, 2017 festivities. The recommended action that the council receive and file a report regarding the update on the July 4th festivities planned for 2017. And I understand there may be a question on that. Item number 9 is update on the skate park. The recommended action is that to receive and file a report. Item number 10 is an update on the use of synthetic turf at city parks. It's recommended action that the city council receive and file a report regarding the use of synthetic turf at city parks. Item number 11 is approval and release of Fuel Dock Restaurant RFP. The recommended action is to authorize release of the RFP for the Fuel Dock Restaurant. Item number 12 is a resolution supporting the City of Avalon submitting an application to the California Coastal Commission Local Coastal Planning Grant. And this was previously mentioned in the intro report. The recommended action is to adopt a resolution supporting the City of Avalon submit an application for the California Coastal Commission Local Coastal Planning Grant Program. Item number 13 is to Fuel Dock Fender Pile D Shape Bumper Guard. And the recommended action is to authorize the harbor master to purchase 19 sections of 15 feet long D-shaped rubber bumper guard for the Fuel Dock Fender piles from Techno Rubber Industries in the amount of $6,521.75.
Hey.
He done.
Council, what's your pleasure?
A lot of tongue twisters in there.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to pull 4, 5, 9, and 10, please.
Okay.
4, 5,
2,
9,
and 2,
2, 3,
and 10.
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Yep.
Okay, hang on.
2.
Well, let's add 11.
11?
8 and 9.
We got 8 too.
Yep, and 9.
Okay.
Let's just go through them. It's
Yeah.
easier and that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's
One at
fine.
a
Yeah.
time.
Take them one at a time. Move
Yeah.
through the
That'd be
list.
easier, yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you get.
Well, 6 looks. Oh, and I had a question on. Okay, my question on 6, but they left us, was because somebody. Do they actually make honey? I don't think they have any beehives. They just have yellow jackets that they.
They just keep
the
us
yellow
from
jacket,
stinging.
not the bees.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yellow.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we'll just go
I guess
down.
they used to have honey a long time ago, huh? Okay.
Marshall had
The yellow jackets ate all the
Bees.
bees.
Probably.
Somebody
did.
pull 8.
Yes, I went.
Yeah,
well,
what
that
did
was
he-
my only
I would like
question
to-
on 8.
Yeah, we pulled 8.
Oh no, 8 is pulled. Yes.
and 9.
So why don't we just go through them in order?
10.
Okay.
11.
Yeah, let's do
Well,
that.
1, 6, and 7, 12, and 13. I'd make a motion to approve on those.
Thank you.
Oh, I think that's great.
Second.
Okay, moved and second. Any
Move
further
it.
comments?
So 1, 6, 7,
12 and 13.
Yeah.
12, and 13.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. Call for the vote.
All eyes.
With one abstention?
All right.
You already noticed that, yeah. 2.
Okay, let's move on to item 2.
my question would be for this is the one I voted against a couple weeks ago. You know, the temporary permit for that was for a year and 2, right? Is that
Yeah, it goes for a year. Well, okay. Each permit, when it's granted,
right?
it can be for 1 month.
Right.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a year each time.
No.
It's up to the discretion
Correct.
of the city manager.
And it depends on what the project is. So it
Correct.
could be a
Okay.
week, it could be a month, it could be a year, but
Okay.
then it's got to go to the city council. It's longer than that.
Right.
So
So
the council,
the most it can be is 2 years, right?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay. But
And
that's
then-
up to the discretion of the city manager. Right?
Subject
Subject
city
to
manager,
appeal.
And the way the ordinance reads in
Correct.
the amendment, which we discussed, is immediately upon the granting of a temporary permit.
Okay.
City manager will send a written notice to the council, and it goes on the website.
Okay.
And after that, then anyone has 10 days to repeal it to the city council. So there's more public notice of this than we give anyone, because you're going to be notified, and it's going right on the website.
Okay. That was my question about your.
Yeah.
And the appeal costs how much to file?
The appeal?
I don't know what the cost for administrative appeal
900
is.
and something, isn't it?
I think it's 800 from the fees list.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
trying
would
to say.
hope-
Is that
Does that need to be in here, or is it just on our schedule fee list?
I would hope that we would look carefully at that on an appeal such as this, and maybe we could bring back to you, because that's an enormous amount of money for an appeal on something that.
Maybe
yes.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm thinking of just planning
And
commission appeals.
What I'll look at, we can look at the fee schedule to see if there's a fee established for appeals of administrative determinations by the city manager. That's what the appeal fee would be. And every year, the council, when it comes to you, you can set your fee, so you can set it lower than that for this. But we'll have that as an what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what that is, and I'm going to send you an email tomorrow so that you know what that fee is.
It's just the people are missing the first bite at the apple if they don't get a chance to have the thing heard in public.
Yes.
Okay.
The fee is $364.
Okay.
Which might be a little excessive.
Appeal to the city council, each instance, 300. Each instance is $364.
Would that be in the case that somebody would appeal one of these permits being issued?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
And then the council, you can always, because what you've done in the past with things is as part of the appeal, you can direct that the city refund the appeal fee. You've done that in the past.
Okay, and this is
I don't
just.
want to. I see the fee as an hindrance to filing an appeal.
Yes. And the theory of fees is that it pays for a cost that we actually incur. So if we don't incur the cost, then we shouldn't be charging a fee. And so your point, Mayor Pro Tem, is that we need to look at the fee in relationship to what really is our cost, and that's a point that's well taken and we'll pursue.
So if the council would like to, you can direct staff, because the fee is not set in the ordinance, you can direct staff to, during this time period before we have the formal fee resolution, that the staff is not to collect any fees for these appeals.
And Amanda Cook has a comment.
I just have one really quick question, and I apologize if it's in the ordinance. You said we're going to post it on the website, that the permit is being considered.
No, but granted.
It's been granted. So is there a public mailing?
No, unless it says, unless the underlying action requires a CEQA action, then there's possible you could go through a mitigated negative DAC on this. So
If the use being proposed requires CEQA?
yep, CEQA applies to all discretionary actions, all
actions.
land use. So with each one of these, there is CEQA consideration, and it may be the case that a permit couldn't be issued until everyone's been notified in the public, and there's that actual CEQA thing, which means it goes to the newspaper, and it's 30 days notice. So it just depends on what each project has to be analyzed to see if there's a potential environmental impact.
So my last question then is, if it incurs CEQA, then the normal CEQA fees would apply
Correct.
for an exemption or M&D
Yes.
or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, and I think as the council was informed at the last meeting, that this ordinance enables you to look at narrowly at really one site, that it enables us to do that. That's my understanding of your intention. So there's not going to be a lot of applications that this office is going to be processing.
Is the only staging area going to be right over here at the Las Casitas?
Yes, sir. That's that is the area. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, shall we vote on this one?
Shall we move?
Well, yeah, let's move it so we can vote on it. You know the.
Okay, make a motion, adoption of an ordinance establishing temporary use permits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Comments? Call for the vote.
4 ayes, Marshall, Sampson, Cassidy, and Olson, and 1 no, Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you.
Item number 3.
I make a motion to approve item.
Somebody wants to discuss it a little bit.
Someone wants to discuss it? Okay.
Report? Is this already been, it's here?
Yes.
Fort Cliff is here.
Yes, Richard, this has been a total mix-up and debacle since last spring. So as you see on the invoice on the second page, they billed us back in June.
Right.
And
I did see that.
we have been going back and forth. It was very much a miscommunication, and we have spoken not only with ES staff here, but as well as the mainland staff to make sure that they know the correct protocol, because we always come with at least a minimum of 2-3 bids, quotes on a piece of equipment like this, and we did not receive that, and it was purchased without prior knowledge, but it will go into our inventory. There will not be a budget amendment, but taken from the vehicle fund.
I get it. Okay, I just slipped through the cracks.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Did we get a good deal on it, at least?
We don't know.
But we are not getting charged their usual 15, 20.
We are not, no.
Ms. Ratty made sure that 15% overhead was not charged.
That 15% was taken off, which was another $1,000.
Okay.
And
that was my question.
Yeah.
just to add to that, Councilmember, Denise and I spoke about this earlier today as well, and assured that ES is well aware of the policies, because it's really not okay to do something and ask for forgiveness later, especially when we're talking about taxpayers' dollars. So,
and an
I feel
email
confident that
from
they
Van out at
understand.
ES today, he did say that he would be reaching out to all the council members to have you come out for another visit, so he can just refresh you guys on what's going on out there, and you could actually see the equipment. And
that was just my question.
No, it's a good question. That's what you're supposed to do.
Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Call for the
Get on
vote.
with it.
All ayes.
Okay. Item number 4.
Number 4. Is there? I'll start this.
Please.
Yeah, I'm just still comes back. We've been kicking this horse. I think we went over this in June, maybe of last year. Maybe I forget what exactly. But again, we're talking about the agreement with, in good faith, with Hamilton Cove. We're talking about our fire truck. We've talked about how many payments they've made since then. This originally started, I think, if I remember right, in the year 2008. It's almost been 10 years. We received a total of, $6,250 times 3, and they have $175,000 payment to the city for a fire truck. Realistically, now I don't think you could purchase a fire truck for $175,000. I really don't. I had a little talk with the chief today, and I was hoping he could enlighten me on the cost of a new vehicle now, fire truck.
With a little bit of internet search today, a typical Type 1 engine is going to run about $500,000. That's a middle ground. Essentially, each fire truck is custom made. They don't roll off an assembly line. So the middle ground appears to be about a $500,000 apparatus.
Wow. So that's a 9-year span. I just wish there was we could bring this up and meet with them and get a happy medium to meet somewhere in the middle to get this all settled and done instead of doing it the slow way we've been going. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what avenues we'd have to take, but I would like to get down and meet with them And you saw the difference in the fire truck cost right now. It's quite a bit. Maybe we could meet halfway in there, and maybe they could just make a one-time payment or make payments to the fire department in a timely manner and get it all done and finished. This is ridiculous.
And so this is an agreement that was done, I think it may have been longer than 10 years ago. I think it was done many years ago.
Okay, all right.
And this is a development agreement, and so Mr. Flynn and Hamilton have the vested right to have exactly what the development agreement says. If we want to change that, we'd have to go to them and get them to voluntarily agree. But they have the right under this development agreement to build their homes, and each home that they build, they make that payment. So we could ask them, and we can meet with them and see if there's maybe another aspect of the development agreement that we could change to get more money for that.
Because it also says right here in good faith.
Right.
Well, good faith, 10 years later, I don't see any good faith.
This fire truck, who's going to pay for the fire truck? I mean, from what I'm seeing, this is only going to cover half of the fire truck.
It's not even close.
Third of it.
A third of it.
Again, this was well before anyone in this room was even involved in this. But the purpose was to have a fire truck stationed over there, and not necessarily a new fire truck, but just a fire truck that was stationed over there in case there was something happened. And once you get a certain number of people over there, you're going to need a second truck.
I was part of that process.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Council member.
But with that being said, if we could bring this to the table again and see if we can get something started or going in the right direction.
I think there's an argument that might be palpable to them by indicating that for the safety of the people who live in Hamilton Cove, having a proper piece of fire apparatus is to their advantage from a public safety standpoint, and it might be that in that discussion, as the city attorney said, that there might be some other issues that there could be some discussion on, but from a fire rating, from a fire rating, they have a piece of apparatus right there in a case of emergency. So maybe that would be it's certainly nothing ventured, nothing gained. It certainly would be worth having that conversation.
Yeah, we'd like to see if we could do that.
Right.
Strike up a conversation and with the chief and whoever else we need to get to help do this. It's just ridiculous. I think, they're way off on that. So that's the reason I pulled it, and see if we could do that.
So I do have a question. If the fire truck is sitting out there, do they have... So we got to run out there to get in the fire truck?
It originally was scheduled... Oh, Chief, go ahead. I remember looking at the...
Years and years ago, the thought was
Thanks, Chief.
the thought was to have a station out there. Where they had this grand plan for the project at Hamilton Cove. It didn't become as big as there's actually a helipad out there as well. It's not used. Then there was a school of thought that, we would park a fire engine out there and just have it available. But obviously, a fire engine just sitting out there with no firefighters doesn't make any sense. So I think what has happened over time is that things have evolved, costs have gone up, and the two things are very far apart at this point.
Right.
But this was all part of a much bigger plan. I mean, there was a whole Cole Lambert proposed project that was, almost its own little side city over there. Yeah. So, what?
Cole wasn't in Hamilton.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
It is its own city out there. That's a huge city out there.
Yep.
It was originally approved at 330 units. Now they're cut down to 290-something units with a big build-out. We get a chance to get at this when the developer comes in and wants to amend it. We don't really get the chance to amend it on our own.
But we could ask.
But we could ask.
Right. And so we'll have that conversation. Yeah. I understand that's the direction. We'll have that conversation.
I might also add that the value of units from the time that there were just concrete slabs in the early 80s, the value of those units have gone up enormously in comparison to what they were back then. So the value that's protected, there's a lot of more protected value that's needed out there than would have been in the 80s, and so that might be an incentive. But nothing ventured, nothing gained, and that's what we'll do if that's your direction.
I would like to see that.
No.
Back to it?
Well, that's kind of interesting too, because people are talking around town that they're having a hard time finding homeowners insurance in Avalon, and because of the drought and possibly because of flooding. Now I don't know, but there are people that are not able to find homeowners insurance, and I don't know if things like that help with that. And I don't know if that's happening out at Hamilton, but it's definitely happening in the
I hadn't
city
heard that.
proper.
What is
Hadn't
our
heard
fire
that,
rating,
Chief.
Chief? You
We
know
looked
our
at fire
fire
rating.
I'm sorry, what was the
What was our
question?
fire rating?
We're an ISO 5 right now. We actually improved from a 6 to a 5. But there's several factors. Is also that, like many communities in the state of California, we're part of a very high fire hazard severity zone, which affects people. But I haven't heard of people that haven't been able to get insurance. I've just heard that costs have gone up like a lot of different things. But I haven't heard any particulars where people have been refused insurance.
Yeah, I've heard of people, and I should find out who they are, because if everybody's able to find it, whoever's out there who says they don't have insurance, if people, I mean, I go with State Farm, but State Farm will not bring on anybody new, for example. So, and I don't know if other ones are doing that, but
If people are denied insurance, so that's there, the Office of State Insurance Commissioner has an advocacy office, and it might be a discussion for regulated insurance companies, should they not provide insurance, that the State Advocacy Office is very responsive. They're very good. So that might be an avenue if someone was refused completely insurance.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to accept and file the report.
Is there a second?
A second.
Call for the vote.
Hernandez, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Item number.
Excuse me,
Oh, I'm
Mayor.
sorry,
We
Denise.
have 4 ayes and 1 no. Councilmember Sampson.
Okay. Okay. Item number 5.
Somebody pull 5.
Somebody
We're
pulled
just going
up.
down the line. I didn't pull it.
Joe Sampson.
Yeah, I wanted to know what our growth policy is now. I mean, we've got so much going on right now. We just got out of the water rationing right now, and I'm not sure that was such a great idea because we still don't have a water master plan. Our infrastructure it's got problems right now. I mean, it's not in the greatest state of affairs. You know, we got a great crew that runs our sewer treatment plant, but it's getting old, it's getting aged, and I think everybody who wants to do something in Avalon, I mean, we need to start paying forward towards our infrastructure, towards our water, towards the costs that are going to be drawn up by the city, our streets, our water plan,
Bless you.
and our sewer. So, can you explain to me what exactly our growth policy is here for the next year?
Ms. Cook will come up for that, sir.
Does it address all these shortcomings?
The growth policy lays out the type of projects that the city will allow during the forthcoming year, and they are all listed in the attached resolution. So it's basically projects involving existing commercial and residential structures which are repaired, replaced, in kind, an infill project which is 5 or fewer residential units, or a commercial project that's not increasing by any more than 50% or 5,000 square feet. The residential tract development can be allowed if 20% of the projects of the units proposed are non-transient affordable housing, and Edison confirms that there's water available. Infrastructure projects authorized under or by the city or the successor agency. Projects which the Planning Commission determines will not have growth-inducing effects. Projects which are not categorized as infill or existing residential or commercial structures, but which a negative deck, mitigated negative deck, or an EIR report is adopted in which specific findings are made why the resulting growth is beneficial to the city. In any event, projects which have been either granted a water allocation by Edison or projects where the city council or their designee determines that water is available shall require an additional finding by the City Council or their designee that any allocation of water for the project by Edison is consistent with the city's adopted general plan and water-saving policies that the city has or may adopt in the future, and that the allocation of water for the project is done in a manner that is fair, transparent, and promotes the public health and safety welfare.
Okay, can I ask a question? I want to ask how are all these CUPs beneficial to the community? I mean, it means more money, but it's detrimental to our housing stock. Our housing stock is going down. I don't know if you have all noticed when you go out to rent a place, it's getting way more expensive, and the more of these conditional use permits we give out for these rentals, that's the less year-round housing stock we're going to have. So we're just compounding a problem which we've all agreed is our biggest problem here, which is housing. So how is this beneficial to the
Growth
community?
resolution doesn't affect CUPs.
Growth resolution?
This resolution doesn't affect CUPs. CUP is an existing unit that wants to rent on a transient basis.
Right.
So it's got a separate set of rules. What this is saying is this is growth that will be allowed within
so
the city.
CUPs affect the growth. It's not vice versa.
But that's not done with the growth resolution. That's when
Okay.
they fill out an application and go for the planning commission and planning.
Why is it
commission makes
listed
the
on here then?
determination. With saying things like, I don't know why it is.
Okay.
But that's.
If you can show me what you're looking at, Joe, and I'll try to
Okay,
explain.
so CUP. I mean, they're all over in here.
You're looking at the staff report.
Pardon me?
Exhibit A, maybe? Is that where you see me, Joe?
Those are
He's looking at second-
you're looking at the growth that we allowed this past
Project
year.
approved in the past year are
Yes.
set forth below.
Conditional use permits
So
for
these are already
transient rental.
approved, but they haven't yet been completed yet? Is that what
No.
No,
This is a list of everything that went to the Planning Commission in the past year. So perhaps it was misleading to include transient rentals because they're not considered growth, and Edison has made the determination that converting to transient use does not increase water consumption. So it wasn't intended for this list to be growth representing applications. This was just everything that happened this past year.
Okay.
The important addition to this policy, because it's been the same policy for the last couple of years, is subsection G,
Yes.
which basically says that you as a separate public entity or an entity from Edison have the right, regardless of what Edison says, to determine whether or not there's sufficient water available. So anyone that is going to build a project has to not only get Edison's approval, but your approval as well. And
Well,
so that's a new thing that we put in.
So does it
That's a
go-
biggie.
That's a new.
That's
Does it go
Yes.
by the council
Yes.
or does it go to the
By
planning
the
commission?
council right now. By
By
the
the council.
council or designee. So right now it's of the council.
Just the council, okay.
Unless you determine, you want David to do it or the planning commission.
Okay.
But right now, I've written it at that it's the council.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
well, wait a minute. So, I mean, why don't we have the planning commission look at it first, and if we don't, and then we see it, because they need to do their job, and I think you all should have, they're getting trained in doing all this. It seems like they should do their job, but we should be made aware, and because I think the appeal process is kind of a hassle too. I don't know. I think they should do their job.
Your point, Mayor, I think, and the city attorney, I think, would agree that the council could certainly designate the planning commission to hear the matter. If you wanted to retain then the final decision based on their recommendation, you could do that. Or you could have them decide it. Okay, well,
I definitely
then
want to
that would be an
oversee
approach.
what the decision is
Yeah.
so that we have the
And they
initial
could
say
vet
so.
it. They could vet
So
this.
what it'll be is what you're designating under the policy is you adopt the policy, but you're designating that the planning commission will hear these and make a recommendation to the city council. And then so they'll
Because
make a
all that
recommendation,
data, all
and
that
then
water
you'll-
data should
Okay.
be in the hands of the planning department first. We're not going to sit here and take care of,
ultimately, we have to make this decision, though. I mean, it's getting to where the water is becoming scarce in this town. We still don't have a water master plan.
There was some bad decisions made earlier. That's why we put that
Right.
in there.
The-
So we
the-
would have a say-so in it. That's what I think the council
Exactly.
is getting at, right?
Yes.
So
there you go.
what I'm hearing or understanding is that the Planning Commission gets a project for a 3-unit house, a triplex. And the Planning Commission is going to say, we're recommending approval of this project. It meets all the development standards that it needs. We're going to forward it on to the city council for the city council to decide whether or not there's water available.
No, you have to
Planning
decide
Commission has
that
to
first and
decide.
make the recommendation.
And then you make Planning Commission decides and make a recommendation to the city council.
Okay, so you're going to give the Planning Commission a graph that says, we think there's an extra 50,000 gallons of water available, and the Planning Commission is going to decide how that water is getting used?
If I may, what I recall a conversation earlier, a few months ago, it had to do with water allocations being made to projects that the city thought did not warrant them. And the council instructed the city attorney to come up with a mechanism that would give the city control in determining whether or not whether that project could be built based on that representation.
So maybe it's not a positive approval of extra water against Edison. Maybe it's the right to veto Edison's
or hold
allocation.
hold
that the
over.
city says we don't.
Or they I think you would need, they would need, so if you say, okay, they want to build 10 units, and right now we're out of the water thing, and pretty soon maybe people will be able to come up for permits. Okay, but maybe policy-wise, we don't believe, and maybe it's a policy decision, but we don't believe there's a sustainable water supply. So if we end up in a drought again, but we've already approved another 30 units somewhere, whoops, and then we have another drought, we don't have a sustainable water supply, bam. And I think that kind of rationale should be considered at the Planning Commission level, and that could give justification. And maybe after that, maybe it's when you say no, when the Planning Commission says no, then they appeal that to us to say, oh, yes, and prove it wrong. Maybe that's the direction it goes. Instead of, it's only, help me out here, Scott.
You tell us what you want to do. Right now, the way it's written is the Planning Commission makes a decision, and it's not final until the council blesses it with water. And again, the purpose is again, as the mayor said, Edison may say there's plenty of water, but if they don't have a long-term plan, if, for instance, they're not using the desal plant and they're just going to exclusively rely on the reservoir, do we, as the city council, say, yeah, you can go ahead and build this big project without that long-term solution? So this gives you the power. So the issue is the Planning Commission is going to hear, all the other evidence and all the other
remember how this all came.
requirements. Yes. And then so the previous thought was the council would approve the Planning Commission would approve and then make a recommendation to the council vis-a-vis water. That the Planning Commission feels that there's sufficient water for this, and then you would accept that recommendation or you'd reject it.
Right.
That's one thing you can do, or you could say, Planning Commission decides with the right to appeal to the city council, or you can decide it yourself. Yeah.
So, Mayor, you would like the Planning Commission to get on board and start understanding and projecting projecting a better idea of what the future holds for Avalon. Is that what you're saying? You give them a little more responsibility here.
They need to be exactly. They need to be knowledgeable, and I think going forward, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe a discussion tomorrow, is that we should be getting numbers. We would need to have numbers on a consistent basis. How much is being produced in desal? Continue to let us know what the drawdown of that is. And once we know their plan, then we can make more intelligent decisions. But instead of feeling like we feel has been done before, and we just must stop.
And it may be, Mayor, that as the supply of water, fresh water, becomes sustainable, as and can rely on water as a resource that is available, that you might look at a different approach later, but at this point in time, based on your previous testimony to the council, there was concerns about for projects for which water was allocated when you were in a drought, and I think that's where the genesis, if I recall, this came up. And so this would give you that mechanism.
Exactly.
You could choose to use this way now. Maybe you'd use it a little differently if there was a sustainable source.
Yeah. And again, every year this comes to the council for approval.
Right.
So what we're saying is for the next year, while we figure things out and while Edison hopefully
we work
gets these
together.
to our
While we work it out.
gentle request tomorrow morning, that this is the way the rule's going to be the next year. And then we come back, and then part of the growth policy is, and the first page of the staff report is, we tell you as staff how the growth policies work, what's been allowed in the city, and then you'll take that information to develop the growth policy for the next year. But this year, we'd like the ability to have our own independent analysis of water.
Absolutely.
Well,
I think so.
if you read the tariff in section rule number 3 of the tariff, and this is one of the talking points that I have for tomorrow to clarify it, we already have the ability to do that. We have not exercised our rights to do that. So putting this in our growth ordinance wraps up some of the discussion that we've had. But as it stands right now, it still covers what your request is, because it's saying
That's
that
what brought it up.
their designee determines water is available, or I'm sorry, that a water allocation by SCE or projects where the city council or their designee, and we are, the ordinance is written correctly here, and we are making the designation right now that it's going to be the planning commission.
No, and that's why I brought it up when I brought it up. And when talking to the previous public planning director, Pete Wilson, it seemed as though when we had water, it seemed like it was redundant for us because it would go to them ultimately. So it was like everything was okay. But I think it just got out of hand, and maybe that was just kind of, I mean, you've worked here a long time, Amanda, but it seemed like it was something to that effect. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so here's my question. The Planning Commission enforces the municipal code that is a defined set of rules. 3-foot setbacks, 28-foot height envelope.
Okay.
You give the Planning Commission the criteria to decide which project there's enough water for. How do they decide what criteria, what bucket, whatever, how do they decide that there's enough water?
We'll work that out.
How do we decide that too?
You have to be able to
we
give,
decide?
if you want them to make the first call, even if you're going to make that call, you have to have a criteria, and then take that criteria and you apply that to every single project exactly the same.
This rule, let me as I remember this issue came up because there was a feeling by some of the council and by community members that the allocation system was not being fairly managed.
Right.
And so the city said, there were projects that were being approved when we were in drought that there was questions about whether they should have ever been approved. And so this mechanism, what Edison would do is say to the project development, as I see it, is we have so much water for this project, what do you think? And I suspect in most cases it would be a blessing, okay, that looks fine. But if there was questions, it would give an opportunity for the community to come forward. It would give an opportunity for interested parties to come forward to the commission and say, wait a minute, we don't understand why this was done and it wasn't done over here. It just gives another validation. The documentation on water supply would come from Edison, but that could then be reviewed. It would be reviewed by the commission, and ultimately, at least at this time, you would make that decision.
Or make. Go ahead.
Go for it.
And we can implement.
Or maybe that means that the planning department and Edison, when an application is in, maybe you two confer together. If you're getting data, because I don't think we should be doing that homework. If you're getting data and then you write your report that says, yeah, we met,
But that's
Edison's
what we
always
do
going to
now.
say there's enough water, though. They've always done that.
We work with Edison, and Edison either says, yeah, we're allocating water, or we're not allocating water. So here's another question I have.
Okay.
Edison says, we under our rules, we don't think there's any water.
Okay.
So we approve a project, which is what we're doing right now. You can build your project up to the day you get ready to ask Edison to turn the water on, and if they're not going to turn the water on, we're not going to give you a COO to live in it. That's the same thing. Planning Commission can say there's water, you can say there's water, but if Edison refuses to come down there and turn the meter on, we're not in any different place than we are right now, where Edison is saying we can't force Edison to turn that meter on and give those people water.
Well, I bet they're more apt to turn it on than not.
But again, what this policy is addresses the other situation. So let's say there's a big 120 single-family residential unit that someone wants to build. And Edison says, fantastic, we think you've got the water. And looking at that, the city decides, well, if there's no water policy in place by Edison, if they're not using the desal plant, we can go and do stage 1 or stage 2 very quickly if that comes online, because it's going to drain the resources. And so as part of the approval process for that, you have to make a determination. The city makes a determination that we think in our judgment there's water available, and part of that is using that approval process with the developer, with Edison, to guarantee that there's water available for new projects. And it gives you a little more power than you have right now. Right now you don't have power with allocations. This gives you power. And again, it's legal, and it is consistent with
And most cities in California have that power because they run the municipal utility.
Maybe we ought to just keep it how it is until Edison comes up with that growth plan. I mean, with that water master plan and with some kind of a long-term water solution for Avalon. I mean, it's not
And
there
that's
yet.
what we can, but Joseph, that's what we can say right now. With this, then we can say that instead of feeling like maybe somebody's gone behind our back and gotten an allocation and we knew nothing about it.
Yeah, that's what.
Right. So I think we need this now.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
And we will work administratively with the planning department on administrative regulation just to implement the policy. And to talk about this a little more, we'll collaborate with the city attorney and planning director, and we'll make sure that we implement the policy in the manner that we've discussed tonight.
I know it's not going to make it. I mean, I don't.
Well, I'm concerned that it's going to turn into this big debacle that we don't have clear guidelines of what we're approving and what we're approving. But I think using the policy to veto an allocation and not approve a project because we don't believe that the allocation's being adequately or appropriately given, I'm all for that.
That's how it would spawn.
The one that we're all trying not to talk about, it should never have happened. And I think having that in place where we could have said, no, we're not going to do that.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, in the interest of keeping it simpler, why don't we revisit the safe annual yield and have Edison confirm the safe annual yield? Because that's what they're supposed to sell up to. And if we think the safe annual yield is too high, which at 550 acre feet is too high because of the drought we've been in for the last 5 years, let's revisit it that way.
We can do that as part of the city's water policy. What this does is this gives us, again, the implementation of it is because, again, the safe annual yield currently doesn't take into
account the desal. What I see happening is that we're going to go down this path, and for some reason, somebody's going to get a hair up their butt of it, and we're going to have a project that gets approved up till it gets here, and then we, for some reason, think that it's not going to be water available, so we veto it, and the applicant's out all these big bucks for all this stuff that it's taken to get here, when, in fact, the issuance of the water letter should be discussed initially before the guy goes out and goes through this whole planning process.
Well, it wouldn't, because he would understand that any developer now, if this policy is adopted, is understanding that they have to, the first thing is they have to have their water from both Edison and the city.
So instead of going through the whole planning process, there was the old approval and concept plans back in the good old days? Is there a step that we need to confirm that the water is before the guy goes through all the rings to get the whole set of plans approved?
Well, that is up to the developer to do. For instance, a developer could just say, I want to get my water approval from the city council
Right,
first.
right.
We have had instances since I've been here where a developer will come to the planning commission or the city council with a concept and get a concept approval and then start to spend the money. Nothing in this prohibits that from happening.
So I have one request. So in G, in the first sentence where it says, in any event, projects which have been either granted a water allocation by Edison or projects where the city council or their designee determines that water is available shall require an additional finding by the city council that any allocation of water for the project by Edison is consistent with our plan. I think the phrase or projects where the city council or their designee determines that water is available is opening the door for them to ask us to grant an allocation against Edison.
We don't have the authority.
And I don't think that's, if I'm understanding what you're saying, you want to retain the right to veto or to say no.
Yes.
And maybe I'm misreading it, but the phrase that says, or projects where the city council or their designee determines that water is available, makes it sound like either Edison can give them water or we can give them water, and then you make the finding that, yes, there's water, and then the project goes forward. I go back to the idea that I don't think, without some really serious criteria, I think having us grant water over and above what Edison's doing.
That is not the intent of the ordinance. That is not. So your point is to clarify that it is not the city's intent in this policy to be the grantor of the water. It is though the city's authority to say whether or not it agrees with an allocation that Edison makes, and that's your point.
And that's the phrase that
can
says,
be clarified.
Yeah,
I think we just clarify that.
The phrase that says shall require an additional finding by the city council.
Okay.
Then that's like, yes, you have to have that additional finding, and that's your veto power.
Very good.
Well, and then let me bring up something else because I don't know if it fits in somehow, and I don't know if it's all happening. It won't happen anymore. But the transfer of water from one project to the next, that was pretty muddy. It never seemed to quite float.
Well, but so what would happen though is, so that's going to be, then Edison's going to issue an allocation.
First of all, we'd have to.
Or the transfer. No, they're going to say that, yes, we bless the transfer. Okay? Then that approval still has to come to the city council or your designee for approval, because you're looking at, is there enough water for this project? You're looking at each project, is there enough water? And so if there's a concern about a transfer, that's part of the consideration that the city council or its designee will have in granting this.
Well, because you might have had, somebody might have transferred water from one place to the other, and the thing isn't used, but then it ends up being used.
Right.
So,
and then,
add that you have to require the finding that any allocation of water or transfer of water. Add that as something else that you have to make the finding of.
Right.
Yep.
Because if we can't understand it, well,
that's a really big question.
And then, then kind of on the piggyback of what you're saying, and I know we've allowed, you can build with no water. I mean, you just can't have occupancy. Was that a smart move, or was that a stupid move?
Well, I think the intent for that was to try to accommodate those projects that were already in the pipeline. So we have not had any new projects come in and say, oh, I want to go to the planning commission, I want to get building permits, and I know I may not get any water.
I think that was our way around a moratorium as well. Remember, we were discussing a moratorium on building, and then we said, okay, well, you can build, but you just can't have the water. I mean...
But now that water is falling from the sky, some people might think, oh, there is a possibility in some little near future I could get one.
And Edison has a list.
El Nino to dump what it did.
The water we have right now is a facade because we still have some negotiations tomorrow. And if we have no success in these negotiations, in a year or two, we're going to be right back where we started.
Well, this is a point of discussion for tomorrow's meetings, is to the concern of allocations, especially now that we've just been told we're going back to phase one, that we don't currently today, unless city managers receive the information, we don't today know what the list of allocations are that Edison has in waiting. And so, there could be 40 projects on Edison's list that we don't know of yet, and everyone else would go behind that. But, let's say that there's one project on their list, and now that we're in phase one, maybe that project would go through. But if that project is a 200-room hotel, we would say absolutely not. We're not looking at inviting that sort of impact on our water system.
In your meeting tomorrow, could you ask for a copy of the list?
We've already asked for it. I've also asked directly Edison for that list as well.
So I've made the changes. The way it reads right now, it still says city council or designee. So in terms of how you want this policy to work, are you going to designate someone, or do you want to go to the planning commission for recommendation?
I'd like to the planning commission in there, personally.
Well,
I see. Ultimately, it's still the council.
Yeah, I think what it does is,
you want to have planning commission make a recommendation for
and then
approval
we have the ultimate
council.
decision on it, right?
Yes.
That's what you want?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to
All right.
have this
So
ultimate.
that's the way it will be implemented.
So it'll come to the PC, and then they'll make a recommendation.
Okay.
Is that
right.
livable, Amanda?
Yeah.
Is that making okay? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
I just don't want 7 people arguing over a gallon of water.
Okay, so
I'd rather
then we
have
just get
have
5.
some clear guidelines so that we can do it
Understandable.
the same.
Right.
Okay.
But
All right.
but I want them to deal with it at that level.
No, that's
not
fine.
pass it on.
Right.
Because it's good, the thing. Oh, it's going to get to them anyway. So
Let's just
we're-
kick it up,
let's
yeah.
kick it up the
That's-
ladder.
We'll make
I
it
don't
work
want
let them
that.
vet and let them vet the
Okay.
thing.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you.
So
Thank you, Amanda.
I guess we're making a motion to adopt the resolution establishing the City of Avalon's annual growth policy for 2017 with the one change in Planning Commission vetting water allocations with the final authority of the council.
Right
And
on,
it's going to
sister.
include transfers.
I second that
including transfers.
motion.
Yeah. Second that motion. Moved and seconded. Comments? Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Thank you. Item number 8. Hi, Dan. Okay, somebody pulled this one.
Yeah, I did.
Good.
So, we're talking about putting up money for the band, right? Is that what we're talking about?
That's certainly part of it.
That's certainly a big part of it.
Band is probably totaled up about $20,000 between lodging and the express over and food for them of the $50,000 that we have allocated. The barge itself, I believe last year we split the cost of a barge. It was $8,000, but if we don't have the opportunity to split the barge again, it could be in upwards to $15,000 to do something like that.
Have we already asked?
We're in the process of asking. They do have a show in Two Harbors. We're assuming they have a need. We just haven't nailed that down yet.
So,
Yeah.
so that 50,000, is that the 50,000 we had left over lingering with the rec department? Is that?
That is not 50,000 left over. That's 50,000 that's been allocated just towards the event.
Okay. From the city?
It's in the budget for this
right.
fiscal year. Correct.
But that's not the net figure you'd spend according to that. You'd have
Correct.
revenue
Yeah,
of
that would be the
$20,000.
expenditure. We hope to bring in about $20,000 in revenue, so it would be a net of about $30,000 in terms of an expenditure. And there's some things that we're looking at doing as well this year. We're looking at adding a pet show. We're looking at doing game booths for the kids. We're looking at having some increased entertainment on Wrigley's stage. So going above and beyond maybe some of the things that we've seen last year or previous years.
So anyway, with your discussion with the Chamber of Commerce, with them, was that about all the parade? Because I know it's just hard for me to swallow some of the money that goes down here. Because I know we've given the chamber in TOT taxes $1.2 million, And I'm not sure of what their half for bargaining in this parade or helping out.
The relationship that we had in years past, and Jim can speak to it a little closer, is they are responsible for the fireworks show itself. And so they've got an expenditure of about $22,000 to put on the show.
Okay.
We bring in the barge, and then we do the things on Front Street, on Crescent Street.
The thing that didn't appear to work well was the attempt to go together and people to send a check to the city of Avalon. That was a mess because people are willing to donate to the chamber, but they're not willing to donate to the city. And so they're going to be able to go out and raise $25,000 or whatever their fireworks display is, and we're going to have one hell of a time trying to raise money on our end.
So Jim and I have met previously. What we have decided to do is we're still going to keep it in the hands of the chamber. We're going to assist them with getting addresses, email addresses, mailing addresses, anything that we can to assist in getting that information out. The letter will still go through the chamber, will still come through, and then we're going to do a 50-50 split on whatever comes through. There's a couple things that we won't split. We're looking at doing some pocket concerts with the band, throughout the city, and that will come directly. We'll push that. We're looking at some additional fundraising things specific to some events that we want to do, and that will stay with the city. But in terms of just a general campaign to help fund it, would be a split.
Oh, good. Yeah. Jim, go ahead.
A detail related to the donation aspect of this. Part of what Dan and I have been talking about is really trying to ramp up the sponsorship side in addition to the donation. Most of the funds that we have historically raised have been individual contributions, not someone actually being able to get some value of maybe a banner ad on our website or something like that in exchange for being a sponsor. So we're working on that. The other is the reason that you may or may not recall, the reason we parked the donation button on the city's website had to do with advice we received a couple of years ago about the tax benefit to the donor making that donation. We as a 501c6 cannot offer a tax benefit to that donation.
Thank you.
And we had people that were looking for that. They felt when they were donating they should get that. We may be able to carefully revisit the language. I would defer to the city attorney and city finance director, but perhaps it could be a check made out to the 4th of July fireworks fund or something like that wouldn't feel so municipal. I don't know, but that might be a way that we could do that.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, that's just my question.
Okay, and we want input tonight on your themes?
Certainly. I mean, we were planning on going with something that related to the Cubs and their win and the Cubs history here, and so just putting the feelers out, we felt like the fly the flag is the general direction we wanted to go. Gave people the opportunity to be patriotic, fly American flag. We could fly a Cubby flag. If you're a Dodger fan, you can fly your Dodger flag. But that was the kind of the direction that we were headed.
I'm okay with that.
I support that.
That works by me.
We have contacted Lolo. He's checking his calendar for July 4th as the master of ceremony, the Grand Marshal for the event. I think we'll be able to work that with his history of the baseball. We're going to try and tie in a softball game on the Sunday, Monday prior to it to kind of keep that feel of the American pastime of the baseball.
And at the barbecue, we are having a goat.
That has been requested by the mayor to have a goat. Goat tacos.
The curse of the goat. They broke the curse of the goat when they won the pennant.
She wants
and I think we could easily either pit one or have one on a rotisserie.
She wants a goat.
Bartman may be free that weekend.
Who?
Bartman.
Of
Yes.
course. Aren't we going to eat the goat, Joseph?
Yeah,
Goat's delicious.
We could have
I
somebody
know,
cook
I
it underground.
do it.
We could cook it down on the beach. That would be good.
Yeah.
Under the
Anyway.
sand, like they do in Hawaii.
I'll buy the goat.
Are you going to slaughter
goat.
this poor goat?
Moving on.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem has something to say.
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Oh.
Let's do this.
Accept the staff report and concur with the Fly the Flag theme for the 4th of July.
You know what? And I'm really excited because they're going to have tattoos. I think that's great.
I'll second the motion.
And a tattoo?
I'll second the motion to receive and file the staff report and call for the vote.
All eyes. And it's not 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
We got a lot to do before 10 o'clock.
Dan, you're up again.
All right.
Were there some questions in regards to the skate park? I've taken one of my very first stops was at the skate park here as I brought my son over, and I think I shared with one of the council members that, through that interaction, as I'm, looking at this recruitment opportunity here for myself and the family, my son spent some time at the skate park and met a couple kids, went back to Westlake, Calabasas area, and he's in contact with the kids. And so just a really cool little social gathering place, at least for our family as well as others that use it. Early on in my time here, I spent some time at the skate park talking to the kids, both younger and older, and types of needs that they still saw that were deficient there, and kept coming back to this platform-type ramp and some steps and some grind rails. We have a lot in the way of half pipes. We have a lot in the way of quarter pipes. So the piece that you have in front of you is a piece by OC Ramps, which the city has purchased in the past, and I think the majority of our wood ramps are probably from them. Had some great discussions with Monica Seals, and I think she supports certainly the idea in going in this direction. So at this point, that piece has been purchased, and we're really looking forward to the kids getting their hands on it. As we start to show the picture around a little bit, there's a lot of excitement. I think some really good buzz about having that piece there, and it'll help just fulfill some needs that aren't there right now.
I'd love to see. I'd like to see some of the money that we have from the parks go towards the skate park. $5,000 is what we've budgeted. But is there any way we could break away with some of the money from some of the park improvements over here and donate it to the skate park? And that way we can put a lump sum of, let's say, $20,000 and really make some really nice improvements on the skate park. Otherwise, it looks, anything we can do to improve the facility is fine.
I think it's a great idea, but we're not allowed to with the grant funds.
That we're not allowed to?
That we don't own that property.
Yeah.
And so
we can't put our grant money into it?
No, because anything we do is any improvements we make with that money is forever, and we have to have land tenure. We have to prove we own it.
But in the next budget process, we can budget money that out of the general fund that we want to spend over there.
Right.
So we got $5,000 budgeted. Basically, it's an annual budget allotment. I don't know if it's enough because we're looking here at 49. Yep. Okay, I appreciate that because we're looking at $4,900 for one ramp. And Monica's raised and Chris raised their own money, but they do their own work and they don't charge us for their labor and they purchase everything themselves and it's pretty much they're self-contained. So I don't want to touch her money.
Staff's proposing that in the next budget they're going to increase the allocation.
Oh, they are?
Right.
Okay. To how much?
Well, we can all recommend.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we're going to take this opportunity, I think with the new ramp in there and the buzz that we'll get from that, we'll take the opportunity to work with the kids who are there, and that'll be just prior to going into the budget cycle, to get a feel for what other pieces of equipment they'd like to see in there, and then we can go back and put together some budget numbers and come back for this next fiscal year with that.
Okay. I'd like to ask Monica what she thinks of this, and is there anything else we can do to help the park out? In your opinion, Monica? I'm glad you made it. Thank you for being here. What can we do for you to make your job easier? Because I know you and Chris are two of the biggest stakeholders and donors to that park.
Well, Dan and I have been having pretty good conversations as far as that new ramp that he wants to put in there. Money is what it is. And because we don't own that land, that's always been the reason. And so it would just be nice to have more than the 5,000 to go towards the park, because we're kind of, like we've talked about before, we're just piecing it together, and it's just getting Band-Aided. And if we don't have enough in the kitty, I mean, 5,000, like you said, is the whole budget. So that's gone now. And now there's nothing for maintenance. So, I don't know, it just makes sense to have a little bit more just to cover the maintenance part of it.
Right.
Because we're going to keep buying ramps, and then the older ramps are going to keep falling apart, and then we're not going to have money to repair those.
Okay.
And then it'd be nice to have, I mean, we talked before, and I think this was back in 2015, when last time I was here, about getting like a signage for the park, because nobody even knows it's back there. And with the thing that I heard that Jim's doing with the kid thing, Kidalina, it'd be nice to let our visitors know that there's a park out there, because they stop at the skate shop and they're like, wow, you guys have a skate shop here? Do you have a park? And they don't even know. Then you see kids all bummed out because their parents didn't know. I don't even think it's on the chamber website of things to do for kids over here. So that's something that I'd like to see, is some type of signage. The other thing I think we needed was, because of PARSAC, the old rules are up there right now as far as regulations, but those are way outdated. So I don't know if there's something that Dan can do to go maybe look up at other cities and see what their park hours and, you know, the ages that can be in there, because I'm pretty sure there's an age limit of unsupervised kids in there. So just to protect the city, I mean, that's stuff that needs to be looked at, because the ones that are up there now are really old.
Yeah, the PARSAC, I think that point is that there are rules for our insurance carrier that would protect us and protect those users, so that's important. You know, what might be useful too is for that project, since everything cannot always be done in 1 year, is that you identify in what a plan might be for that, what you would like it to look in 2 years or 3 years, and you could then, that might be parceled up where the council could then vote on an annual basis on improvements that could be made to it. But it would be really helpful to have a plan of what all of you see for that facility when it's completed, and that, and then we could look at what resources might be put.
I mean, just in a little bit of time that Dan's been here, I feel like a lot's been getting
Mr.
forward.
Energy, yes, he's Mr. Energy.
So that's, I feel really good about that. But it has been 17 years, so it's so I'd like to.
And also, we'd like to keep it a skate park. Right?
Yeah.
We want to see any.
Yeah, he brought up the basketball thing again, kind of.
Yeah.
Let him know how I feel about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to. Yeah, we got plenty of basketball courts. We got 7 or 8 of them at the high school.
Oh, there's
outside.
Las Casitas too.
And you got
there's
some at the
right
Las Casitas, and they have some out at the Mold. I don't.
Casitas doesn't have a rim or a basket.
No.
They have 8 more baskets at the school.
Yeah.
And there are low ones, big ones, high ones, and I don't.
The
skate park's the skate park.
Yes.
I know they've been battling that for a while. I would just like to see it continue to be a skate park.
I think the momentum's good right now, and I know Island Company's got plans, but could be 5 years, it could be, however long. But the other thing I wanted to bring up that I noticed on the last city council, no one really thought of, but all the equipment that's going back out there, the last time we had all the equipment out there, kids were dragging in a lot of that, the loose pipes and the steel and all that into the park. So that's something to maybe think about when we're putting all the stuff back out there again.
That's why the conditions there in the forms, there are conditions, and part of it is to secure the area, protect it from dust, make sure that whatever goes there, that it protects the area or those who are adjacent to the area, including the fire department, so that there's access, Baywatch, so there's access, and those are all conditions that will have to be met.
Because that was a big thing.
Now that we approved this area for staging for construction, we got to make sure that we don't box in the skate park in there like we did last time and stack everything up against the fences and make clutter around the skate park. We got to keep everything away from that, because last time that was a big problem.
That's all inside the fence, Joseph.
It took us months to get to get that stuff out of there.
And then one of the other things too that we brought up last time was to protect because of the rains. And I don't know if we're going to get any more rain, but every time it does rain, that whole area, just the mud and everything goes into that park. So we wanted to take a couple of the K-rails and put them on the outside of the fence along right there to keep it. And that would also clear the K-rails from the back where the kids were climbing on them and stuff. But I didn't know if we needed Island Company's approval for that. So I didn't know if we could go, someone could ask about that, because that would protect it and protect the fence.
Protect the mud.
I say let's just do it. I mean, do we have to get some kind of approval for that? I mean, I asked that same question like 8 months ago. Why don't we put some K-rails up there before the wet season, because we were having problems with all the mud coming down the canyon from where up here, and it all goes down into the Las Casitas, straight across the dirt easement there, and then it goes right into the skate park. And I asked for K-rails months ago, and we never moved on it.
The property owners, you're right, the property owners, private property that impact public rights of way or property that's leased or managed by the public have a duty to take reasonable steps to protect it from runoff and to protect it from mud, and those requirements, if you will, are being conveyed. And we're getting initial good reception from the major property owners here. So, but we'll have to look, Dan. We'll have to look at what those particulars are and how we might be able to address that in the short term. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, basically, the last meeting, you guys asked for us to come up with an ABC scenario and invite people to maybe come over, look at our park, and give us an idea of like, okay, for this amount of money, you can do this, for this amount of money. And I think that's all. I know he reached out to a couple of them, but there's a few more that I found. So that would be helpful to come before you guys next time, too, for the budget thing. But Joe was talking like it'd be nice to have some lights. What did you say, solar lights?
Oh, no. I want to get some solar lights.
Some more shade would be good. I know.
Yes, solar lights would be good. That way, when kids are skating into the evening, the lights light up, and at least we can keep some light on there throughout the night so that you can see what's going on over there. And even when it's locked, there'll be some lights on so that you can see who's in there, you can keep the trouble down to a minimum. If the cops do drive by, they can at least look in there and make sure nobody's.
That's going to be really important, because there was a time when that wasn't happening, and before school the kids were smoking pot under the ramps, and
especially with all the stuff that was back there, it was really easy for them to hide.
But now it's really harder to see because they have all that stuff on the fence. So law enforcement's going to have to make the effort to go back there and look a little bit.
Well, they can go back there. We can go back there. Anybody can go back there and say, "Hey, you guys get out of there." I mean, yeah. We can sick the cops on them, and you can.
I'm not saying sick the cops, but if there's curfews, because there are curfews, and if there's whatever, if kids are out there having a great time, I think that's wonderful.
So I can see oversight.
I think Dan has his task set up for the next budget cycle.
If I can just add, in terms of the master plan of the park, one of the things we did do is we went out and we asked a couple companies, and they came back with kind of a master plan. If you had this space with the ramps that we've got, what would you add to it? And so we took, actually both of them had real similar ramps as being their next piece, and that's one we're proposing today. Some of them did it a little differently. Some of them were with steel ramps all the way around, and it's a $500,000 park. I don't think we're there. So there may be a little bit of piecemealing to get to the point where it's even more of a value to the community as it is now.
Cool. Move to receive and file the report.
We're good, Dan.
Okay.
So can I add something here? So what we have is new signs, ramps. I mean, what we talked about, signs, ramps, maintenance, maybe some brooms and some blowers, maybe a tool shack, something that locks up, K-rails possibly, and then oversight, and then maybe have the sheriffs do a patrol through there, and then maybe city crews go down there every week and dump the trash, or maybe a couple times a week. I mean, these are things that we need to do. Now, what about our budget? We're budgeting $5,000 right now. That basically covers one obstacle or one ramp every year, and then I think we should add another $5,000 to that.
I think let Dan tell us how much money he needs.
Yeah,
that's what his job is.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, we're in March. We're going to spend it. We're going to get this ramp in April. We'll be close to our new fiscal year in July.
Right.
If I can add, one of the very first things I did here is I thought that the parks and the skate park and in general, the lack of maintenance is really bad. So I pushed, and with the help of the city manager and the public works director, got a full-time person to work on our park. So I've got somebody going out there 2 to 3 times a week and dumping trash and blowing. And they were out there today. We're painting the sides of the ramps. We put shade up. We put a bench up there. We boarded up the sides of the ramps so they don't have access to, that big one on the backside. So we are doing some of these things now to make it a better environment.
Excellent, Dan.
So you don't have a figure for us?
Not yet.
I think what we need to do is continue to go to the user groups and find out what they'd like to see, and we'll take that feedback, and we'll come back to you at the next fiscal year as we present a budget and have a number for you there with specific pieces that'll go in at that point in time.
Sounds good to me.
Is that fair?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, and so you said...
I move to accept and file the report.
Okay, I'll second that. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Okay, thank
Item
you.
number 10.
Hi, Dan. See you again.
Did we? Yeah.
So I don't know if there's specific questions to it, but the approach that we're taking here on the parks is we're looking to provide some green space. We set out with Joe Machado Field, and in the absence of water and the drought, I think that was a great decision to do that. We're getting great use of that field. We'll continue to program it. We thought there was an opportunity with some leftover turf to take a look at our parks. There was an opportunity that came forth after we got the initial grant for the Mole Park project, Kanabe Park, and then the Avalon Fit Trail with some additional funding of a tune of $284,000. It was a pretty quick turnaround in terms of the offer was there. They asked staff to put together some ideas on what we could do to further enhance the facilities. In doing so, I laid out some of the things that we're looking at doing with that money. Some of the money, as you recall, $129,000 of it was to complete what was bid for at Kanabe Park as well as Avalon Fit Trail. We were short in terms of the funding that we had available to do the projects that are in place, and so it came at a great time. We didn't have to use general fund money to finish those projects. With that, we had about $155,000 that were left. $80,000 of that allocation roughly was to go to Joe Machado Field. It was to put concrete down where we've got a beautifully nice field and we've got dirt dugouts. So to do dugouts there, replace some bleachers there, put shade structures there, continue to enhance that that facility. Mole Park. One of the ideas was to put a couple picnic pads up there, replace the barbecues that need to be replaced. That's been done now. So some of that money has been spent to do that. Try to get the tourists and the visitors, the visitors and the community that use that area to barbecue out of the dirt, up on a concrete pad, a little bit nicer of an environment for them. And then the rest of the money, about $15,000 was allocated towards the park across the street, and another $30,000, so total of $45,000 to upgrade the landscaping. And the thought was, in the drought, that we take the opportunity to use synthetic turf to do that. As you see across the street, we started to do that. We're waiting on some additional turf to come in. We're waiting on some signs that come in that say, not for your dogs. We've got other areas for that. We've ordered some mulch around the areas that will provide some mulched areas for dogs. We'll keep some of the areas in dirt as well to provide that opportunity. But the small patch that we have, if you've gone by the park, oftentimes you'll see kids playing on that small piece of synthetic turf, and then the larger dirt area being left alone. It's dirt, it's mud. During the summer, we got here about midsummer, and it's a little bit of a dust bowl there without water on it. So that's the direction we're planning on going with that, and like to hear any questions you might have in regards to it.
On the kids' park, and I'm not being critical because everything is wonderful. The town is happy. Everything is great. However, it is.
However,
everybody's
dropping.
Everybody's happy. But so I laid down on that little piece of patch of stuff there today, and I don't know if those wood chips that are there end up, I was picking them up and throwing them back in the thing. So I don't know if those slides need to be a little higher, but if that's dangerous if they're higher. But all of that stuff goes out over the side, and that's then not real comfortable if you're playing. I mean, I got one little splinter in my finger, and I wasn't even playing hard. So I don't know if there's something. It's just a minor criticism that I don't know.
The mulch, sir. One of the things we do need to do, and I've noticed that as well, is the maintenance of that. So we need to be through there and groom that and make sure it gets back into the areas it's supposed to be. Ideally, it's supposed to be a nice ground cover. It's going to help, leave some moisture in the ground, as those roots and the trees wells aren't exposed to. That's the idea of mulch. So, it's a direction we like to go. We think it's a clean look. We just need a little bit of job to make sure it gets raked back into to the areas.
And maybe
that
that's
needs to
just
go.
the answer. Yeah, just that simple.
One of the things I did add, and it didn't add, and it did come up, is the use of plastic. Often you put, a plastic liner down below synthetic. We did it up at Machado Field as a weed barrier. Some of the concerns came up that, inevitably we're still going to get dogs that are going to urinate on it, what have you. That we have decided to pull the plastic out, so if it does get urinated on, it penetrates through. We still have the sprinklers in place at both locations, and those areas can be flushed out, which is pretty typical. There are dog parks that use synthetic turf. I know the Agora Animal Shelter, they use it up at there. It's difficult, especially in dog-friendly areas, especially dog parks, to keep regular turf viable. So synthetic turf is sometimes an alternative to that.
So this would pretty much wipe out all the money, basically?
Basically, this is what we went to the county and said, these are the projects that we had. If you decided this is what we want to do, and we've got water in our wells and we got water in the reservoirs and we want to seed that, then we could certainly seed that. But I think this is going to buy us some time until we can maybe look at reclaimed water or other water options to do landscape watering.
Are we looking at the back side of the park over here? Is that going to be left dirt?
That would, for the most part, be left dirt. We're gonna ring the wells, tree wells, with mulch on that. We'd like to consider where the bike rack is, that larger area, maybe mulch that somehow or DG that, make that a dog-specific area. I've got a couple
That's a
dog
good idea.
dispenser trash cans coming in that will help set that off. We're looking at putting a fire hydrant, faux fire hydrant there that,
Okay.
identify it as an area to
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate just dirt because it ends up growing back when we start getting rain. Grass just grows in that area. If it's mulch, that's fine, but you're going to get dogs in there. And we don't have a dog park, so it'd be nice if is a place for dogs to go. I totally appreciate that. And it's looking pretty good. Appreciate your efforts.
Good job, Dan. I would like to move that we receive and file the report.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Thank you, Dan. 11.
Hello. I think there was a question. It was pulled.
Actually, my question was not really about the RP. My question was today. I was out there looking at it, saying that if the RP doesn't go through, we don't have anybody to do it. Are we able to still have a fuel dock for the summer? Are we able to still pump fuel? That was what my question was.
Yes, sir.
We'll be able to exercise our summer stuff.
Yes, sir.
And everything.
Yes, sir.
That timeline you sent us.
But that was mine.
The timeline will be refined. I think as we let's see. I have to look at the timeline.
I forgot what it was. The timeline for the fuel dock was going to be.
Oh, the timeline. It's Dennis told me that they expected that to be completed by the end of March, so it would be ready by summer.
Okay.
And that was the
end of March, ready by summer. Now, I did have a question or statement on the RFP.
Yes, sir.
Is that when you weren't here then, but when we originally sent it out?
Yes, sir.
The plans, there was no plan for a second deck.
Yes, sir.
And we specifically let the plan for left the second deck out, and I don't want to let the applicants think that there's an opportunity for them to stick their foot in the hole and put a second deck in.
We can certainly clarify that in the RFP. And of course, any changes from the approved plan that the Coastal Commission and you have approved would require city council approval. But if that is the council's wish, we can certainly put that into the document that goes out so that it's clear.
So it's clear, because it was a negotiation between us and the Island Company during the...
No second.
I did hear somebody say.
Yes, sir.
That's all I had. That was a negotiation or agreement?
Sorry?
It was part of the discussion about the building the gas dock and the...
Was that there would not be a second deck?
There would not be a second
There
deck.
wouldn't be anything up on top of the... That was a discussion, and so was that an agreement? Is that what that was?
How it was approved.
Excuse me? I didn't hear.
Yeah, we agreed not to put a second deck on it.
That was before us.
That was before you guys. And the reason was we didn't want to repeat the repair barge fiasco.
Oh, I see.
The thought was, as I recall it, is that if you had a second story there, you block the view of the casino for a lot of people, and we want to have the casino be visible throughout the harbor.
I'm not in favor of having a second floor on the place, but I think it would be more appealing in the RFP if they were allowed to have some tables or something up on top. But if we agreed that we're not going to do that, that's fine. I'm just trying to define exactly what we agreed on and what's right for the facility.
And again, it wasn't us, Joseph.
Yes.
It was. When did you submit the plans to the?
It was 5 years ago. Years ago.
So for clarity, what I think I hear the council saying is that you don't want a second story, like a building, like an extension above. But the clarity question, I'm going back to Councilmember Sampson. If there was a surface where it wasn't enclosed, but it was are you saying also that you don't want any activity on the roof?
Yeah, the idea was there would be no activity, because if you put a dining area up there, you've got a 42-inch rail around it.
Yes.
You've got an elevator building up there.
Yes.
And we just wanted to
I understand. Okay, thank you, sir.
You'd probably have to go back
That would
to
have
the
been pretty
CUP.
cool.
You'd have to go back to the coastal.
And you have to go through all the approval, yeah. Yes, sir.
Then you'd have to go back.
Most importantly, your approval. So that's...
Okay, so
Sorry, so you need a
move to issue the RFP with the amendments.
second.
second.
Thank you. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
May I ask again, please, for who made the motion second? I just lost it. I lost it.
I made the motion.
I second.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So if we don't have a restaurant out there by the summertime, can we put a taco truck out there or something like that?
Burrito bar.
Come on, Bob. Come on, fight for your taco truck. Two of them, Mexican and whatever
Dueling,
else they
yes.
want.
No, we need a sushi shack.
Oh, sushi. What?
That'd
We
be
have
good.
more than
Sushi
one.
shack and
Place
a
is
taco
big.
A
truck.
sushi truck and a taco truck. Okay, that's it.
No.
Okay, so
Let's
we
order
are
it.
going to.
Well, let me ask a question. Are we going to allow building of that in the middle of summer?
I don't even think
I don't think
anybody
it's
would
gonna
be
be-
able to get
Not gonna be-
through that.
I think by the time you're selecting it, I think it's going to
Yeah.
be June or July.
Mayor, it's going to be in late May.
Again, and are we going to allow them to build in the middle of
They're
summer?
not going to get their plans checked. They're not going to get their plans approved.
Are we-
Even though the Coastal Commission approved, they still got to come back to the Planning Commission, because they're going to.
Right.
They can
the
start in
interior.
September.
Okay, I think people kind of need to know that, though,
Taco
because
truck.
somebody's really gung ho. And then the question is, how can we use it in the summer if it's not?
That's what I
Because
was
we should
getting at.
be able to generate some money off of
Yeah.
it until such time as construction starts.
Are you suggesting, Madam Mayor, Bob's taco truck? Is that what you were
I
saying?
am, and her sushi truck.
That would be
And
Director
sushi
Bob.
truck. And sushi truck.
And a sushi truck.
I mean, it'd be a shame,
Sushi
to,
shack. Okay.
and recreational activities on it. I mean, we really. ought
Well,
to
maybe
use
we
it.
could sell some spots out there for and raise money for the 4th of July parade. Sell some
barbecues. We could have
Direct staff
barbecues.
to look into.
I'm sure
what
the
we
community
could do.
services director could
Yes.
be have very creative ideas. for the-
We're taking direction to look at what we can do during the summer period.
Excellent.
Okay.
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 Right on top of
In
that
fact,
fuel.
the person that gets the RFP, they may want to put something out there.
Park those trucks right on top of all that fuel.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. I think we're going into closed session,
Yeah.
so we'd like to
We got-
say goodnight to Tony.
Did we already
Do we have to?
We're all done,
we need
yeah.
to
Number
announce
12?
that?
Yep.
We're done.
We already did
13?
this.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to closed sessions, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. This is to discuss the city's rights vis-a-vis the e-buses and discussion of warranty remedies.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night, Tony.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah.
Ready? We're back from closed session.
No reportable action.
Meeting adjourned.
Bryce is done. See you, Bryce.